Alright, there it is, whatever. Welcome back to Cannabis in Canada with Jason Wilcox. It is January the 2nd, 2018. I believe today's Thursday because I head to the island tonight, so yeah, I think anyway, as things are playing out. So good morning to everybody, and I noticed a lot of people seem to be on the air this morning, which is good to see. We got a lot of different people out there. I noticed a few new grow shows, which is good to see. We got people out there teaching cloning, and once again, the glitz and the glamour's there. I just hope the content's there, but most importantly, we've got people teaching each other how to grow, and that ultimately is what we want to see. In the end, 110% is just ongoing. Not so much teaching people how to access cannabis from certain locations, but moreover how to grow it for themselves and treat themselves. Or again, every family member seems to have a grower that I've gotten to know in BC. Every family member seems to have one. So wow, that was a fast jump on. Yesterday, I got to wait for my phone, and then I'm going to check on here. And we got tickets for Dark Harvest. Now, yesterday, I don't know, about 70 people watching between YouTube and Facebook, and I didn't give these away. I ended up waiting to the end of the show. There's a screening this Sunday. Doors open at 1:30. Show starts at 2 p.m. at the Cinema Thog, whatever, at 1131 House Street, which is literally just down the street from me. So just down House Street at the theaters. Normal tickets are $12.50 just to get in. So the reason is not because it's a blockbuster video. The reason it's $12.50 is because it's a screening. So once again, it's the official premiere. Cast and crew will be in attendance. And my friends, if you want to meet a really cool cat, I keep saying this, I never met him before, was AC Peterson. I watched him play a really dark role. I talk about this every show, but I watched him play a dark role in Dark Harvest, and seen him play. Again, it defines acting. See, to me, I never really appreciated acting until I had a chance to see the comical side of a person versus the acting side. And it sounds silly, but hey, it is what it is. So I was gonna wait for my phone to find out where our numbers are even at, so I can do this giveaway before people tune out, which is understandable. It's a morning sesh. There's not a lot of information being put out there. Good morning, how you guys doing? Bud Light, Colin on YouTube. I can't check Facebook right now, I apologize. We are doing our usual scramble in the morning to get things going. But Dark Harvest, the movie, remember, this is available. You can watch this. You can, I can't go through all the names. I'm going to play the interview, as I always do, between James Hudson and Cheech Marin. It's my hope to have Cheech on the show here one day in the near future. And as well as a few other, I don't want to get into names, but a few other high-profile people that it'd be good just to get the, again, I like to interview the story behind the story. So you might be the story in itself, but I like to find out how people got to where they are, and then of course where they're going in the future. I look forward to getting back to some of those interviews. This morning show has become sort of a fucking, excuse my language, but this is the one time I swear. Sunday show, I'm doing my best not to swear. I'm doing it to keep it cleaner for podcasts. But this morning show has started to garner some attention. Thank you to my friends on YouTube for sharing this around. Our audience has went from being more American to finally I have more Canadians watching me than I do Americans. No offense to anybody, but just demographics on YouTube. So to my Canadian friends signing on YouTube, thank you. If you're on Facebook, thank you. And to all of you, I love you all just as much. And there's dedication behind doing this. I don't get paid to do this. There is no big budget. There's just simply a love for wanting a free and fair market and to free the cannabis plant once and for all, if we're truly going to call it legalization, not criminalization and profitization, if that's even a word. So hope you guys are all having a fucking fabulous Thursday. You know what, Island brothers and sisters, the tours are starting. As I said, as the year kicks on, we get out on the road, and it's going to be a lot harder for me to do this morning show, especially live, and be able to engage without it being from my cell phone or something silly. But it won't be professional mics and all this shit that we got going on now. That being said, man, if you ever come to BC, Vancouver Island is the place to go. It's where our capital is the city of Victoria is. The people, just good people. I tell you, I love going to Victoria. It's almost like my home away from home, my getaway. I used to live there, and then I moved over here for medical reasons, but long story short, we will be there for 4 days filming. We will be starting up in Nanaimo. We'll be visiting our friends at the various Nanaimo locations. You know who you are. We'll be contacting you actually today. We leave tonight. We're just not sure which boat to come over. We're going to check into our hotel, and we're going to kick tomorrow off from the Nanaimo area, and then we're going to be heading down to the Central Island. We'll spend one night in Central Island, where we'll be filming in a boardroom and a couple other places to make sure we capture and encompass all of the Coalition documentary, as well as a few other things, ultimately ending up in Victoria, where we're going to have an unannounced private kind of party. The reason I say unannounced, because we don't want to have a bunch of, we don't want to have it over flooded with people. It's more of a closed, as we go down the island, hey, let's get together and celebrate. Are you down for meeting up in Victoria? So for my friends in Victoria, if you're up for this, if you're down for this, let me know, and more details can be given. If you have my cell phone number, give me a call. If you want, hit me up at cannabisincanada@gmail.com. If you're on the island and are interested in hooking up with us, if you've been part of the Coalition, past or present, demonstratively, and are interested in being in the Coalition, we will be on the island filming for the Coalition documentary. That's the purpose behind this 4-day trip. Some parts of me considered not doing it, and then enough of it is decided that, you know what, it needs to be done. So there it is. We're almost done with my phone there. Now I'm going to try the Facebook. The only problem with the Facebook, guys, is if there's a Facebook lag. YouTube's even worse. But Facebook is like on your computer. This is why the giveaways, I do the number generator now. Then thank you for whoever it was that taught me that, because when we do giveaways, it was becoming hard. Pardon? Okay, so anyway, somebody gave us an idea for a number generator, which was a fabulous thing to do, and it allows us to focus in at least on a number. The problem that we were doing before was just saying, hey, ask a question, whoever gives the first answer, and the person on the computer punching it in on YouTube, well, their answer is going to, well, they couldn't play. People on Facebook, sorry, punching in on their computer, it'll take longer to show up than the person on the phone app that puts in the same answer even before the person on the computer, which to me, the algorithms and stuff, they don't permit fair and reasonable contests. So the number generator was the way to come up with the ultimate solution. So far, every contest has went off without a hitch. This week's contest is the Cannabis in Canada's, I gotta get to our website now. I'm still waking up, man. Give me a break. It's first thing in the morning. I need a big wake-up shot in the morning. I gotta get sponsored by Monster Drink or something. Give myself a heart attack. Put Monster Drink up against caffeine. Let's see where that takes us. Alrighty. Holy shit. Only 6 people fucking on here. What the hell's going on this morning? Wake the hell up, everybody. Let's get this going. We don't got a lot to talk about today. I could be on the air for an hour here. I got to jump off anyway and get prepared for the island, so it is what it is. We don't got a lot to talk about today. It's more just rehashing some old stuff. I want to talk a little bit about, I'm still pissed on these Toronto police officers, so that's a kind of a hard one for me just to, Justin, I got your email, by the way. I'm not dogging you, brother. I'm just, I'm organizing a Victoria trip right now, which is proving more complex. And as always, when you throw a woman into the scenario and their hairs and their nails, and then you throw in all the other scenarios, it just becomes, So I'm trying to get back to everybody, and there's only so much of me to go around. I'm sorry, but it's spread thin. I think that's a term they use. They say, hey, you get spread thin, you get run down, and that's exactly kind of how I feel where I'm at. So, you're not there. Hey, Tony. Good morning. Good to see you tuning into the show. Guys, please share this around into a few different groups. Get a few other people on here. We actually got more people watching us on YouTube for the first morning than we do on Facebook. Maybe I should just drop the Facebook feed and go straight to YouTube only. This is interesting. I love YouTube for this reason. But most importantly, I think what it is, guys, is that, like my friends in Australia that called me yesterday on break, you know, on commercial break, literally. We were there last year. They can see what I'm talking about. This is not a Canadian issue. This is Cannabis in Canada, but reporting. But we are only reporting. But this is the footprint for the world. Global legalization is coming. It's here. Canada's servicing 6 other countries. All governments have already made the decision. Not all. The majority of the governments have already made the decision to legalize. You just don't know it yet. The power players, the bankers, for whatever reason, they decided their pharmaceuticals weren't going to do it anymore and to free the cannabis plant. And for some reason, they still seem, I might be wrong, but they still seems like they're trying to suppress cannabinoid research. Remember, Harper, who was our premier here in Canada, his first act when he came into office was to ban all research into cannabis or marijuana if you have it. Why would you ban all research into something you're not sure about that could potentially heal people and, as we've learned, can actually reverse cancer? That's why there's no research in Canada. At least updated research. We have lots of anecdotal research. Pharmacopoeia, since the 1800s, look it up, Google it. Cannabis sativa L, its true botanical name and pharmacopoeia name is what it is we're talking about here today. Cannabis in all of its forms. I'm going to watch the chat here. I'm going to pay attention to our crew on YouTube. I'm also watching the chat as best I can here on Facebook, but it's surprisingly a dead morning on Facebook. But then again, it's getting towards the end of the week, you know, and it is what it is. The end of the week is kind of yuck. It's like right now I'm trying to plan this trip for Victoria, just getting over sickness. I've got friends that are just coming back in from out of town, trying to sort everything out at one time. You guys know the grind. And hopefully I don't knock my mic back on the floor. There. Improv. Good morning, Prince Albert, Saskatchewan. Love it. Saskatchewan's another place. Again, Manitobans are going to be the first to see the front line of the next war. Nova Scotia did the right thing. They came out and said they're going to follow the Cannabis Act of Canada and they're going to allow everybody to grow 4 plants if they so wish. Not arbitrarily restricting their rights, not trying to dance around the Cannabis Act of Canada, and actually doing what was the right thing to do. And good on you, Nova Scotia. Good on you, Northwest Territories. Bad on Quebec, as always, chose not to do it. Shocking was Manitoba. Now, though Manitoba is a wheat and grain kind of place, whatever, how could you shut down or try to step around federal legislation that because of Allard, because the patients fought for the right to grow the cannabis plant, we proved no harm in using it, no harm in growing it. Why is Manitoba trying to dance around it? And when I say dance around it, I mean Manitoba has said blanket, no home growing for recreational users, non-medical users. This is the part that I know, non-medical. Non-medical users can't grow 4 plants. So though this legislation is being challenged, we're waiting for it to become law, but it's already there. Don't kid yourself. And in Manitoba, don't think I'm on top of this as well. Cannabis in Canada's team's on top of as much as we can be on top of right now. You know, in the midst of wanting to figure out how do we find our way. There's 2,000 channels out there. Most of them are trying to sell you something. The other ones are trying to teach you something that most of them are just learned in the past couple of years themselves. And others have learned from a book and are trying to demonstrate in practical terms, only to teach you. What can I say? No, thank you, sir. Honestly, guys, they were saying thank you on Facebook. You know, thank you guys. And thanks to my friends, our loyal viewers on YouTube, like right now, or on Facebook. Like right now, I know this. There's about 5 other shows running with 5 other people, with 5 other different content. And that's what splits up. It diversifies an audience. And that's just the way the internet is. You know, and that's what a free and fair market is. You know what? If you got the content, you got the goods, bring them and deliver them. And then you'll have a show. It's that good, and I truly do. You know, again, to all of our different show hosts. I had Glenn Wells here last week. He was another upstart that started doing his own shows, and it's his hobby now. But you know what? He has a passion for it for the same reason I do, not because it makes money or because any other reason. Then it's the right thing to do is to give the information and to share the information. Collective knowledge is power. People power is power. I say this every day on the show for a reason, because I demonstrated it. I'm not just talking shit, I've already demonstrated it. I restrained the federal government of Canada, I put them on trial, I beat their ass, along with 15,000 other medical patients and all of our supporters. Yeah, an army. But we did it. So there's nobody in this country, at least in my country, that's going to tell me you can't overthrow the government. Yes, you can. People power, patient power, power of the vote. Hoo-wah! Hope you guys are dabbing on some fucking good shit. I'm like fucking low on dabs this morning. I'm really grouchy about that part. That's why I gotta get out and get on the road. Good food and water is actually right here. You know, I was watching the show. This is some juice my wife made me, with fucking, well, future wife. Whatever. Rabbit food. It's spinach, it's kale, it's fucking... It's something that is an acquired taste if you have it, like caviar or whatever, I guess, if those that eat it. But at the same time, really good for you, really good stuff. Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. Man, we got a lot of friends from Manitoba joining too, and Regina, man, Manitoba, Saskatchewan. It's the Central Plains in general. You see, this is what I find. I predicted this. You guys remember? Again, I can back this shit up if I need to, if anybody wants to challenge it, because it comes to a point where it's just like, pull up the video. But I did say that I predicted Nova Scotia would never try to dance around that 4 plant per limit act, because there's 8,000 medical licenses there. In British Columbia, 50% of all 38,000 licenses existed in BC. So over 15,000 people can legally grow in this country. That was before R.V. Smith and before Allard. Raw stats. Good morning, Ontario. Oh yeah, no, yeah, we definitely got weed in here. You're seeing the green too from the weed. Weed, spinach, thyme, what's that stuff called? Thyme? Turmeric. Ginger. What else are in there? I don't know, there's a bunch of healthy shit anyway that, I don't know, Vicky keeps me doing good. So guys, that's the important part, quality of life. I'm preparing to go for a 4-day trip over to the island, and though I'm dressed like I'm in my rags, it's because I fucking literally got to go out and train after this and try and get a workout in, quality of life shit, and then still plan the trip to go over to the island. And what's interesting about this particular trip is we're still filming the Coalition documentary. I'm finally getting back to wanting to even film it. Things change. You end up getting distracted. You end up getting frustrated. You start wondering, is it worth it? Because it's past news. Like, to me, as an activist, you win, you celebrate, or you lose and you mourn and you move on to the next mission. For other people, it's not the same. So I'm wondering, is this documentary, is all this time filming these people just to tell you guys what happened, to show you guys what happened, is it all worth it? Yeah, in a way it is. And I think if John Conroy was willing to sit for 3 hours in front of 3 camera angles and 2 microphone packs on him, I think if he was willing to sit for 3 hours, then there must be something worth telling in this story. And that's part of the reason that I keep doing it. It's being self-funded, so it's not like I've got some big backer that's funding the Coalition documentary. Jason Wilcox is doing it because Jason Wilcox wants to document what happened historically here. Because I can tell you now, if 15,000 patients can do it once, then 100,000 patients, or 100,000 end cannabis users, recreational users, non-medical users that the government's calling you, 100,000 of you could do 10 times the damage that 15,000 of us did. That's all I know for sure. But Wayberry, Saskatchewan. Well, you know what, Justin? You might just be our voice for Saskatchewan. I know you're interested in working with CNC, and we're expanding our voice out. We do represent Canada, and a lot of the stuff, as you guys know, in modern day, we can just grab off the internet and play for you guys. Here on Cannabis in Canada, I would really love to keep a morning show going. We got the Voice of the East, the Beast of the East, that comes on twice a week to give us updates out of Newfoundland, PEI, New Brunswick, what's breaking, what's happening there. Getting some Central Plain voices would be huge. If you're not into being on camera, we got podcasts. We're branching out in a different way, and the only thing that, just so you guys know, you guys might wonder, well, Jason, why don't you just lock on to one of these big investors or sponsors? It's because it's not from lack of offers. It's from being burned once for intellectual property, being used by the very same people that if you punch in Cannabis in Canada right now, punch in cannabisincanada.ca and see where that takes you. And you'll see who's riding off my work that I'm doing right here today. Anytime someone types in Cannabis in Canada, they generally get these sticks. These are the same people that only a year ago were running around saying that they were Cannabis in Canada. Now I've been asked to, maybe you should just kind of stop talking about these guys. Well, you know what? To a degree, maybe I should. To a degree, maybe the whole country should know who they are. To a degree. To a degree. I'm not going to go any further than that. Not right now, anyway. More importantly is going to be the positivity. Now, I've confirmed another expert witness of Allard for filming on the island. Now, again, if you were part and party to the Allard trial, contact John Conroy if you wish about this documentary, because this is not a half-assed documentary meant to go onto YouTube. This is actually a documentary that ultimately is meant to be a documentary, and ideally, if my dreams come true, if I get the right backer, this will be twisted into a proper historic documentation of what happened here in Canada that protected home growing in this country, and many more that you don't even know about. Many, many more. Hey, there's my co-host. And this bitch is going to keep growing. I mean, she or he is dry today. I know some of you are wondering why I haven't diagnosed it yet, but I think if you've seen it, it's a he. Yeah. Oh, can you guys even see that? I don't think you guys can see it up close enough. I'll get my daughter when she comes down to actually show you up close and personal what I'm talking about, to identify a male or a female. At the age of 30, again, this is way over 30. This was planted November 19th. That's as big as it gets. The only reason I'm interested is because it's male pollen, and I'm going to call it shorty pollen. Then I'm going to cross it with a really tall sativa, and hopefully it falls somewhere in the middle and gives me a short, squatty, bushy plant. Now, this is what I love about breeding cannabis. The fact that I could take a little fucked up, retarded plant like this, take its pollen, and potentially express a new genotype that expresses phenols I want, such as short, bushy, squatty. Now some would say, why wouldn't you cross it with an indica? Well, that's because it's already fucked up, short, and squatty. So I'm trying to look at a geneticist point of view. How do the genetics work with the plant, and what's going to happen if I do or don't take things off. See, if I flowered this right now, I can assure you this would all be one bud. If it was a female, it'll still develop buds because it's a male. But, and it's funny because you see all the hairs coming out here at the top. You can see them right there if I hold them up to the light. So you can see the hairs of a female. And then you can see kind of like you see it could even, I shouldn't even, because males show fucking hairs too. I'm not going to get too much into this right now. Well, I guess I got my scope here. Hang on a second. Just bear with me. Oh, it's a girl. I'm sorry. I actually said that this was a potential boy. What it is, it's retarded. It's its way of retarded growing. Now, some people might say it's a hermaphrodite, Jason, and it could be. Again, it's growing really retardedly. Yeah, it's female. So at the age of 30 anyway, when you plant seeds, if you're wondering how do guys separate their males from their females, we don't flip it into 12 and 12 and then just wait to see the males form balls and the females demonstrate that they're females, because you get what's called early openers. And you can actually pollinate your room accidentally or on purpose, whatever the case is. So it's one of the reasons to be alert to that. And if you can get in, if you can identify them, and then if you're not sure, if you're looking at one and you're like, man, I really can't tell, because some express really strange phenos. So you could be sitting there saying, man, I'm not sure. This sort of looks like it might be a Hermie. These are the ones you put over to the side. Like this one I already know is retarded. It goes to the side, you know. And I'm using it as my co-host because it's a retarded co-host until I decide to do otherwise. You can see it's showing positive topism. It's pulling towards the light. You see, so that's expressive of all normal growth. The internode spacing is perfect. The healthiness of the leaves are perfect aside from this one over here. These are dying off more around the bottom, just simply as normal older plants would. If this plant was as big as it should be, if it was growing since November till now, this plant should be way the fuck up here, and these little yellow spots would be nothing because it's normal to take your bottom leaves off. This is a almost 4-month-old plant, and clearly not an auto, or it would be cresting. What can I say? Morning, Sav. Mike Clements, how you doing, man? Mr. Mike Clements in the house. Peter Dye's in the house. That's a good point, Peter. That's what I was saying. Look at the internode spacing. And again, you can see the first internode, guys, was way down here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and it's on its 10th internode. And it's fucking this high. So even if I threw this into flower right now, it will double in height, mainly, if it's not still retarded. Anyway, it should double in height. So at the maximum height, it will be here. It would be transplanted into a bigger rooting area to let the roots run wild. But anyway, because what happens in the root turns through. But that would be the highest I get. No grower in the world would want this particular genotype. That it's expressing, the phenols is expressing, other than the fact of a curious grower like myself. There are strains that I love that are sativas that take too long to flower, and they're no good for indoors. They just take too long, so we don't grow them. If I could cross it up and keep some of its phenols that genotype has, keep some of those phenols that I want, but then make it grow shorter and make its flowering time shorter by hitting it with some of this pollen, well, then we're talking about, again, that's why the evolutionary value of cannabis is so important, that we never allow them to take away the right to grow, because nobody in the world has this strain. This is its own genotype. Grown from seed, nobody else has it. Now, people might have similar genetic markers, or sisters or brothers of it, but nobody has that exact strain. And when I take that pollen, or that, if it turns out to be, it looks like it's a female, so I'm not going to get the pollen that I wanted. It's definitely a female. A fucking female, but it's a female. But I could reverse that. I could then take a male dominant sativa and hit this bitch with fucking male dominant sativa. And then I got male dominant pollen hitting a short stubby plant, which would make it ideally stretch a little bit, express a little different phenotypes. Then of course it's the actual medical high that you get from it. So this is the real in the 604. This is a reel on Cannabis in Canada. You want to talk cannabis in the country of Canada, let's talk it. I beg anybody on YouTube or here to throw me a question, throw me anything you want, because you know what? I love to test show hosts. I love to test the experts. I love to test the people out there that are saying they're doing this for the people and that they've got this down. Nobody's an expert. We're always learning. I'm Jason Wilcox. I'm far from a fucking expert. But I certainly know my share about cannabis, and I'll happy to share it with you guys. And you know what? You guys have taught me more about cannabis than fucking any book has. Collectively, over the past decade of destruction, we have collectively built knowledge, collectively kicked the shit out of governments, collectively overturned policy, collectively saved babies' lives. I could go on with what we've collectively done. I'd like to go on about what we're going to collectively continue to do. Join the mission, cannabisincanada.net. Please sign up, my friends. Join the mission. You will understand more as this international cannabis corpse cartel continues to move around the globe. The activists in each respective country are contacting one another. We've already been linked. If you haven't noticed Australia, me going to Australia, Australia contacting here. If you haven't noticed Ireland and Germany getting in touch with us and hooking up with us, there's a reason. We're not just Cannabis in Canada, we're the footprint. Now some of you may say, so what? That's great, legalization around the world. Well, I can guarantee you legalization and monopolization is not something you're gonna want. When you have to pay as much as you do for cannabis as you would for alcohol, it's wrong. It should be a herb in herbology. The only reason it's worth money is because the government's owned 92 years of lies here in Canada and since 1942 in America, going off top of my head. Reefer Madness. Reefer Madness 2.0 is what we're facing now. Save the kids. No, I dumb butt fucked up. I have to actually retract one thing that I said. I always say I'll retract shit. No, fucking hot. I retract some shit, yeah. And I'll retract any time that I'm wrong. I said there was no recovery houses for cannabis for kids. Now, stupid me, of course, there's going to be somewhere because they got to make money. Addiction, scare the parents, make money. So I get it. But you know what I found out? A drug is a drug is a drug. They're NA programs. So that's all I can say to that. I don't believe in the NA program. I don't believe a drug is a drug is a drug because I'm a medical patient. And I remember trying to help and speak in these places. And some of these patients were telling me they couldn't even take a Tylenol for their pain while they suffered with cancer because they were in a recovery house. You gotta understand what I'm saying. That's a wrong approach to a health problem. Here in BC, drug addiction is not a criminal problem. It is a health problem, a harm reduction issue. Important to keep it in check and underline. Guys, I am fucking jacked. I really am. I can't wait to get to Victoria. Again, friends that are tuning in right now from Victoria, we are coming over to do a lot of sessioning, a lot of dabbing, a lot of filming, most importantly, a lot of filming for the coalition. Again, 4 days on the island, and then we start heading over the country. I think for April, you'll see us in Toronto, and then I'm not sure how it's still being planned out. So I just about hired a manager yesterday. I need a manager. That's what I need, because the problem is there's just too much going on, too many moving and shifting gears for me to truly plan out these trips and at the same time maintain focus on all the moving and shifting gears that are going on. And we are building out fast. You know, you can see our teams building out, and it's good. It's all positive stuff. I mean, it's good to see it happening. It's just I'm begging the audience to give us the time to get our shit together, and at the same time support us, share our shit, because the one thing I can tell you, if you want to come on the show and debate me, let's debate, because I like to show people that you're following truth, transparency, and honor. First and foremost on this show. It's about liberty, it's about freedom in a free and democratic society, and it's about a God-given plant, or if you're not a religious person, a nature-given plant given to you by Mother Nature. Harms nobody, has never killed anybody, and heals so many things that we don't even know yet, the full scope of the synergies of this plant. Just like I don't know why this one's growing retarded. What can I say? I don't have a fucking answer for it. I'm glad I'm not on mushrooms, because I'd probably be tripping balls with about 10 other growers sitting here, dude, what the fuck? And we'd be fucking hitting the fucking computers. We'd be digging this shit up. I tried to throw this to you guys. I've been looking for it. I mean, I get the retarded plant scenario, and I'm with you. I'm hanging on to that, and I'm hanging on to the autoflower scenario. I will note the date, November 19th. I'll also note, just so you guys understand the particulars of this fucked up retard, the particulars behind this is my daughter used soil that's not used for growing. Not ProMix, not cocoa that I use with my combination, but she actually used something different. When she put these seeds down, she wanted to try putting her own seeds down. I thought, no problem. I'm teaching her the trade. And Problem being was that she used the wrong soil, and that soil ended up actually killing off all the other, there was 5 of them, so it killed off the other sisters. Left this one here, barely straggled to survive. So what I said to my daughter is, let's get this out of the soil. We actually transplanted a seedling, which I didn't think would survive for sure, because of the fucking shock. But somehow, she managed to transplant it into this, and it turned into this, a retarded fucking Smurf. This is what I'm gonna call it. If I end up breeding this, its new name will be Smurf. It'll have Smurf in there somewhere. So if you ever see a Smurf line coming out, you know where it originated from, because it's not an auto so far. If it starts autoing, I'll tell you. And then we know there's ruderalis in the lineage somewhere. Somewhere somebody's bred ruderalis into this plant. And that would explain a lot. But it still wouldn't explain why it's taken this long. November, December, January. Damn, that's over 2 months. So it could still autoflower at this point, I guess. That's 2 months, that's 60 days. I don't go over 60 days before I flower my plants. I see people grow trees in 60 days. You know, grow trees really in 30 days and then flip it. You gotta remember that anytime, when you got a plant like this, it doesn't matter. Like this, if I go throw this into a 12 and 12, change the photosynthesis to 12 and 12 from 18.6 or 24 or whatever it is you're running. If I flip this, it's gonna double or almost double in height. Again, genotype dependent and strain dependent, of course. Well, strain, genotype are the same. Strain dependent, genotype dependent. Even each strain, if this was the same strain and I had 5 seeds, that's 5 different genotypes. No one set of, or no one geno is a replica of the other unless you're cloning. Just want to make that clear. Some people were telling me, well, they're all the same. They're from the same seed set. I said, no, they're not. I said, pick your strongest fucking one out of that seed set, and that's your mother. I'm jumping all over the place. Welcome to the morning show with Cannabis in Canada Incorporated. We've been doing this for a decade, and we jump around from everything that's cannabis in the country of Canada. So, and harm reduction does wonders for people and helps give many their lives back. Now, Justin, this is why you and I need to talk, brother, and I got meetings upon meetings today, but you know what? When I get off the air here, why don't you shoot me an email, and you can, I think I shot you one back. If not, I'll send you my cell number. Let's talk, let's see how we can do this, because Vicky and I, in amongst other projects, my biggest one, even before getting this studio into brick and mortar, into a better place, I'm not too worried about being all fancy dancy. Like I said, you can have a fancy dancy website, you can have cool cameramen, you can dress all fancy, you can be rich, but you still can't have 20 years in the industry without experience. You just can't buy experience. You can buy everything else. You can buy those that have the experience, that are willing to fucking work with snakes. And this is all subliminal to just 2 little fucks that I still don't like, you know. They've done enough damage for me to not forget. Anyway, enough on that. Let me see these comments here. Right on, Peter. No, I'd be surprised if it's a male too. You know, I wouldn't be surprised if it hermied out, because if it hermied out, at least then I could say, you know what, guys, it's a fucking hermie, and I retarded it because of the soil. Now, the one thing that I'm not a geneticist to the extent that I can tell you now, in all my years of growing, I've never had a plant do this. Not with perfect internode spacing. This little bit of leaf fucky here, take that off. That little bit of leaf fucky is nothing. It's really not a factor. This is what would happen if the plant was big anyway. Your bottom leaves would start to fucking yellow off and you would kill them because they're not fucking getting the right light. This plant is acting like it's a normal big plant. It's a fucking Smurf. But look at the internode spacing. Once again, please look at the internode spacing. Growers, you know what I'm talking about. This isn't an elongating fucked up plant. And I've shown on a couple shows where I pop it out and I show you it's not ringing it around the bottom. I'm not suppressing the rooting system to make it short. So yeah, it's a mind fuck, man. I'll tell you now, once we figure this out, if somebody gives me the answer and can figure this out before we figure it out, because we're all going to figure it out together, whoever watches this show, when we figure this shit out, we're going to figure it out together. Whatever I decide to do with it, flower it, do whatever, you will see the outcome of that. And if you get the answer right before I do, I'll gladly send you a gift from one of my sponsors, Green Planet Nutrients or Pacific Northwest Garden Supply, because I can assure you there isn't a grower in BC that's been able to confirm and or deny what the fuck is going on with this plant. Because yeah, normally I can diagnose plants like a doctor diagnoses a goddamn canker sore. But this case, I'm stumped. Only because of the clean internode spacing, the short stumpiness. Now, if it autoed, I'd be okay. But even then, who the fuck would grow a plant that is only 5 inches tall for 2 months, then flower it for another 2 months? So 4 months in, you got an 8-inch plant. 9 inches maybe after its stretch. So a 9-inch plant, maybe if you're lucky a ½ ounce, depending on density and growth. And because of the rooting system, I wouldn't suggest much density either in growth. Anyway, enough about that, because we're rocking pure on theory and conjecture here. And I don't like conjecture, I don't like theory, I don't like suspicion. You know, I like facts. Facts change everything. You get all that CBD. Now, I didn't get any answers yesterday, so while you guys are on here, I'm going to do 2 things. The giveaway for the tickets. If you're going to be in the Vancouver downtown area, Vicky and I are hoping to be back from the island and be able to attend this, and we will be there in person, and there will be an after party. We will be filming, and there's a couple of stars that I actually want to, when I say stars, I mean people that acted in the movie that are going to be there that I really want to talk to and hang out with. I mean, not just to film, but to fucking talk with. Like, AC Peterson is a funny guy. You guys got to get out there and meet him. James Hudson, amazing Vancouver guy, actor, director, producer. You know what? It's funny because I had somebody tell me the other day that this movie is too real and too raw. I'm like, how the fuck can it be too real and too raw? This is showing what it is for all of us right now as we're trying to navigate these choppy waters of legalization, where some boats are getting capsized, some crews are turning on each other and eating each other up, other big boats are coming along and rescuing people and taking on new staff, new boat crews if you haven't. I'm talking in parables here, but you get what I'm saying. We're all out in a big ocean, and we're hoping that our boats and our crews sustain until we find out what legalization in this country is going to look like. It's pretty scary times for everybody involved. J. Rock Wilson, rocking super soil with week 4 of flower. It starts to run out of nitrogen, and I add week 4 of flower, you should not run out of nitrogen. I'm sorry, J. Rock, but you shouldn't. Not at week 4. Not on any strain that I know of. Even an indica is going to take you 60 days to flower. And now your natural autumning off, and I have a movie that I'll be playing today, talks about why plants autumn off. And it's the same as here in the winter. When the trees are done and they've expended all their energy, they change color, and we're like, oh, it's autumn time. Look at the beautiful leaves. Fucking cannabis plants are the exact same. But I can assure you, my friend, they don't start to lose nitrogen at 30 days. This isn't losing nitrogen at all. This is just being grown with Medi-1 organics. That's all. It's because I'm trying to fucking figure this shit out. Now, could I hit it with more? Could I make it really dark green if I wanted to? Hell yeah. There's such a thing as overfeeding plants too. But when it comes to... Wait a second, maybe I'm reading this wrong, J-Rock, because remember, text is hard to read. I just want to be sure that I understand this correctly. I see what you mean. Okay, so it's like ProMix. So it's okay. I see what you're saying. So it's like ProMix. Like when I first buy ProMix, so everybody knows this. And if you don't know this, then you should know this. When you buy preloaded soil, ProMix, Sunshine Mix, number 2, 4, whatever, it's preloaded with micronutrients and microbes. That's all you need for your first 2 weeks of growing. Now, if you're going to use an organic, now I use Medi-1, it's an organic in a bottle, it's a 1 part. So I actually use that with pH up, and that's all that I use until flower. So, yeah, I guess the point being is whatever you start with, this is where, again, the science comes in. There's no reason to ever be nitrogen deficient or anything deficient if you use a pH gauge and a ppm gauge. Sorry, electroconductivity gauge that reads in ppms, and then also a pH gauge. Now, if you're always staying within 6 to 6.2 and you're never ever going over 1200 parts per million in your ppms, then you're never going to burn or hurt your plant. If you fall outside those zones, then yes, you're going to have extra nitrogen, little nitrogen, whatever. That's why we scientifically approach growing these days, and we don't just look at it and say, yeah, man, that looks cool, let's smoke it. And then you get a black ash, coughing your head off, and you wonder why, and it comes down to a flush. So I get what you're saying, though. There are super organic soils available. I don't recommend them. I'm going to say it honestly. I do not recommend organic soils. Many of them come with bugs. Many of them come with microbes that are not necessary, and dangerous microbes. Because if microbes attract other bugs, then you end up with other bug problems in your plant. That being said, if you start with something like ProMix, or because some people will say, well, you're starting with chemicals. ProMix is loaded with chemicals, not loaded with organics. I would say you're right. But the plant stops using it after 2 weeks, and then it starts using my organics for the rest of its life until I flower. That's why I have a really good nose. That's why I get the sticky, icky weed from the fucking cure. That's why, again, I'm an organic supporter. Now, if you want to grow teas, I've shown my videos on teas. Making your own organic tea. If you got an extra fridge in your basement where you can store, if you make vermi tea, a whole big crop, you got like fucking 9 bottles, and they all have to be used in 2 weeks. Now, that's a standalone feeding process. You can use it through emitters. In most cases, vermi tea anyway works with emitters. So it doesn't have to be hand-fed organically. You can actually use it in a hydroponic system. But teas can be standalone organics, and they're fabulous. They got millions of microbes, and they can grow amazing, and the fucking nose that you get is, whew. But that's a whole other thing. That's teas and organics versus organic soil. Now, when I take a non-organic soil and I turn it into an organic base, that's because I'm adding organic medium, or organic nutrients to my stuff, or organic tea to it. Many growers will tell you that what is said to be fed on your bottle, and trust me, I'm sponsored by some of the biggest companies in the world, okay? What it says to feed on the bottle isn't always what is necessary. This is why I highly suggest you get your electroconductivity meter, you get your pH meter, and you take the measurements, or watch my 10 series and see how we do it. Most importantly, the new one that's coming up is going to show you how much easier it is with a reservoir. Just use your dipstick, check your electroconductivity, take your pH stick, and I'll even teach you how you can actually use a pH stick or an electroconductivity meter to reverse each other's numbers. Because neutral 7 reverts to blah, blah, blah. 6.2 reverts to blah, blah, blah. We'll have to get into this on a different show. But it's important, because then you can just get a dipstick. If all you can afford, you can't afford both the pens, just get the fucking dipstick. Because what really matters is the flush and dialing in your pH. So, I mean, pH is important, but so is the flush. So there's these two things, and the only way to know that you flushed your cannabis properly is to use water for 2 weeks, but then to do a runoff test. And that's either to check the water that's coming off, or in your reservoir itself should be reading as close to neutral 7 as possible. So 6, 6.2, 6.5, 6.8, it should be really about 6.8. See, 6.2 would be your feeding regimen, 6.8 would be kind of your finished flush. You're never going to hit 7 perfectly, but you could. Reverse osmosis machines change everything. There's 101 configurations that I could go on about, and they go. While I got people online here, I did this yesterday. I talked too much and I lost some of our viewers. My friends on YouTube, if you're in BC and you want to play, you're welcome, but please come on to, we're using a number generator, so please come on to Facebook and enter a number. I have my pen here ready to write down your number if you enter it. Everybody else, please hold off on your numbers, because I can't do 100 things at once. Anybody interested in attending Sunday's screening, these are normally $12 tickets. We're giving 2 away at a time. Vicky and I may or may not be there. We'll be announcing on tomorrow morning show from the island a better idea what we're doing. Or even later today, I might do another show and let you guys know better what we're doing. But you can expect to see some fucking, some filming from some extract labs, some filming from some big grow rooms, some filming from some dispensaries, some filmings from some really cool shit, you know. And that's what I'm looking forward to, is getting back to having the fun. So with the number generator, and again, we tried this yesterday, so I don't know. Hey, first off, hearts and thumbs if anybody is interested in Dark Harvest Sunday night. I'm going to be playing the, actually, you know what? Let me play this first. This will give me a chance to do a dab. You guys have seen this before. This is a Cheech Marin video, and James Hudson. This will give you an idea. And then I'm going to play the trailer right after. It's a 1-minute clip. It's not even a trailer, really. It's a 1-minute clip of footage that's not really seen before. And if you're interested, it is on Broadway Street, downtown Vancouver, Sunday evening at, blah! I thought I had that all, I thought I had that all down, but... it starts at 1:30. The doors open, so you can mingle and swingle with the stars and do whatever you do. And showtime starts at 2 p.m. And there is always an after party. And I swear, if Vicky and I can make it back, we will be there. We love James to death. We think he's a fabulous guy. He's a Vancouver boy, and he brought to life, my God, he encapsulated in a 5-year project what's going on right now. On that note, here's the interview, guys, and when we get back, we'll be giving away 2, maybe 4, maybe all 6 tickets. If you've got a crew and you're ready to do the dirt, let's do the show, let's do the party. And I'm hoping to make this one. I made the last screening. I'm hoping to make this one as well. It's just that good of a movie. We'll see you guys in a couple minutes.
So it's a marijuana thriller set in the world of cannabis.
I don't know if we've had a noir thriller before set in that world. The fact that that's quasi-legal, that's the unsettling waters.
He just killed Frank.
What kind of detective stakes out a house with a murder going on inside?
It is legal, but it's kind of, yeah, maybe not. If you get into trouble and you need a piece, come and see me.
Peace? I thought this was legal.
It is legal.
Yeah, it's legal. It's legal. Just, you know, it's in case anything happens, you know. When I split from Chung, I wanted to establish a separate identity, and anything that didn't have a joint in it, I would do, you know. And so I did a lot of stuff with them. Now I'm kind of farther down that line. I've established my individual persona, and I can do whatever comes up. This was an interesting project, you know. And the check cleared.
What's my username?
Italian Stallion 69. Car says you're Italian.
Italian Stallion?
Yeah.
What's yours?
I don't have one yet. These phones are new.
What about yours?
Latin Heat.
Latin heat?
Italian Heat. Oh, no. It's Italian Heat.
Okay, cut. This is a marijuana movie, and we filmed in real grow-ops, real hydroponic stores. Everything in the movie's been authentic, so it seemed apropos to do the interviews here, and we thought we might be able to score some free
And they give us
buzz.
free weed at the end.
I need you to do me a favor and fire this back up for one more crop.
This is the last crop, man. I'm cutting it tomorrow, you know that.
I know, but I'm in a jam.
Zach lost all the weed.
I had to grease a lot of palms and literally blindfold actors to bring them into these kinds of places to film. Some of them freaked the shit out of them.
Right there, hands! Hands!
We'll understand this character very well because he's empathetic. You know, you kind of see the position he's in and trying to give advice. I get the fuck out of here, start a new business with a better class of people.
Away from people like you and me.
Far away.
Okay.
No rolling, guys. Set.
I grew up watching all of Cheech's movies. See Cheech as more of a mature, serious, dramatic actor. I had a feeling he was the guy that would fit into the film and not thinking about him as a comedic icon.
Right before he croaks.
DarkHarvestMovies.com is the best hub for finding out where you can see the movie, but in general...
Comcast, it'll be on Comcast.
Comcast.
DirecTV.
Right.
He's not in yet. Okay, DirecTV.
Amazon.
Yeah.
iTunes. Where else can you see it? Your house.
At my house, coming over.
You got the secret stash there?
Yeah. And any place that has electricity, hone in on that. They'll have the internet, everything will be fine.
DarkHarvestMovie.com.
DarkHarvestMovie.com.
Yes.
This stuff goes completely legal, you're gonna be the guy that's in shit. Start a new business with a better class of people.
Away from people like you and me.
Far away.
This is the last crop, man. I'm cutting it tomorrow, you know that. Alone?
We have a homicide, and you're the only one who was there alone.
So the hockey equipment got taken.
I need you to do me a favor and fire this back up for one more crop.
This is the worst time to be doing what you're doing.
Your friend was murdered in one of your grow-ups. And you're gonna help me find who did it.
Get on outside and we'll follow him.
You have to go.
I don't give a fuck if this door goes down in flames. I don't have nothing to lose. This bear trap thing's coming down on you, brother.
If we're going to go to court and seek a constitutional declaration in relation to one aspect of the regs, seems to me we may as well challenge the other ones too.
We look forward to bringing you lots of grow rooms as we continue to usher in legalization. We took down the federal government's attempt to ban home growing in the country of Canada.
One thing I noticed as I was just about to walk out of the chamber here was the CO2 bag and where it was located. The one thing that we have to remember whenever you're using CO2 is CO2 is heavier than air, which means that it falls, it dissipates down, and it'll fall down on top of your canopy. So it's a great thing to have this in your room, but this should be centered up over top somewhere where it can fall down over the canopy, and the air from the fans can actually blow the CO2 around to fall on top so the plants can actually get the CO2. Versus this ending up on the floor and not getting the optimal levels of the CO2. But this particular grower, I'm sure, will simply rearrange that, putting this up above and allowing the CO2 to fall down on top of the canopy. Always do that with any CO2, anytime you do that. These are great bags. I'm not sure this is Easy CO2. I don't know this exact company, but these bags are well known to be able to at least keep your bedroom anywhere from 900 to 1200 ppm depending on the company. So they are very reliable, but knowing where to put them and understanding that CO2 is heavier than air will save you in your harvest and help you make your harvest more bountiful. See you in the next part.
If we're going to go to court and seek a constitutional declaration in relation to one aspect of the regs, seems to me we may as well challenge the other ones too.
We look forward to bringing you lots of grow rooms as we continue to usher in legalization. We took down the federal government.
Hey, welcome back to Cannabis in Canada with the Canadian tent series. What else can I say? Gorilla tents, and talking about light spectrum, we're using LED lighting, and of course full spectrum LED lighting. And check out spectrumking.com to check that out. This is the 400 watt. There's a 400 watt and a 600 watt version. But I'm going to get into the two different strains that were tested here, and as you can see, this one is starting to autumn off. And the autumning off is a natural process. Even if you feed them, they'll naturally autumn off. And it's like in the winter time or in the autumn, you know, fall time, the plants change color. Here in BC, of course, it goes all through all winter. But anyway, in the autumn, the trees and the plants, they change color. And we see that, you know, evident. It's no different with cannabis. And this is a good way to tell when your plants are truly maturing. So I know this isn't fully matured yet. I'll put it under a microscope, but it's coming to an end. So it's definitely going into its flushing stage. Now the other thing about growing with LEDs, you can see it's getting all heavy pulling over this way. There's a reason for that. What you guys can't see is I've got different straps. These are just sap straps, leaving lots of loose areas. I've had to take off certain leaves. You always want to be careful. Otherwise, you're going to end up with bud rot. I mean, you can't mess around, especially in a room like this with LED. But keep in mind that these fan leaves, they pick up all of your light. So you don't want to be picking these off. I see a lot of growers pick them off. There's no need to. You know, they bring in your light. That's why you get these nice girthy buds. This all should grow into one. And then these here have been pulled up so that they're not all just dangling down because they're getting kind of top heavy. And that's what happens as they finish. But the sign of the autumning off is a sign for me to start flushing and make sure that I'm prepared and to start using my microscope on the trichomes. And as soon as they get to that, you know, basically a really milky, big resin head, and they start to curl a little bit. They're normally straight up. They start to curl just a bit. And then of course you get a little bit of amber. 10% amber, 20% amber, and you're good. And yeah, so this strain is finishing up sooner, and it's been staked up and ready to go, and that's important to look at. And when you think about LED, I mean 10 cents a gram, the main thing that I'm looking at, even as I put that back over, is just I've seen plants growing under HIDs, high intensity discharge lamps, whether it's high pressure sodium or metal halide. I've seen them growing under both, and you get the same results. So I know a lot of people out there want to hate on LEDs. I would say one of the things, don't expect the same vigor. What I mean by vigor, the girth, strength of your plant to be able to stand up and hold its own weight. For instance, like I've had to zap strap these guys up, can't hold the weight of the bud. That just comes from a lack of vigor that you would normally get with a nice healthy environment. And I'm not saying it's a perfect environment, I'm saying it's a 10 cents a gram environment for end users that want to grow cheaply, you know. And if you're limited to 4 plants, if your province happens to allow you to grow 4 plants in accordance with the Cannabis Act of Canada, well then you'll be able to implement some things like this. And it's important to understand the differences in strains, because some strains will perform and others won't. This is an example of a performing strain, and it too is starting to show its autumning off signs. You know, the lightening of the leaves. At the same time, you can also see the red hairs that are developing within the buds. And I've been scoping these as well, so they're all finishing up and nice and chunky. Once again, what you would expect to see in a regular high-intensity discharge lamp environment. But instead, this is a simple fan, and then the only other thing that there's an investment when it comes to doing this room is this little guy here, because you have to keep the humidity always, I mean, with the door closed, we're up around 50%, 55%. That's where I like mine to be kept. Each grower to their own. There's no right or wrong answer. And if some of y'all are wondering what TNB enhancer is that's hanging up here, this is basically CO2. Now the problem with CO2 enrichment in a tent with an LED is temperature. Without a lot of temperature, CO2 doesn't work quite as well. It still works fabulously though for tents. For that reason, I have 2 of these. The second one's right here, and I just undone it for the purpose of this video. But when you shake these, they'll make a little hiss, and that allows me to know that even that one's just a little tiny hiss, but it tells me it gets close to time to change it. And they'll last you about a week and a half to be able to get through that. But this important part of, again, that 10 cents a gram comes down to how cheap can you be when you put your room together. First, you don't want to be cheap on your tent or you'll have a problem with your smell. So go with Gorilla Tents. That's what I'm speaking to. That's what's been tested here. Second is lighting. If you're not going to use LED, then use 600 or lower wattage for your lighting, and be prepared that you're going to need to take your dimmer switch. See, mine's dimmed right down, and you're gonna have to do this. You're gonna have to start exchanging the air in here real quick in order to keep that temperature down. You need that temperature outside the tent, getting sucked through and constantly changing. And right now, I don't need to do that because I simply don't have the relative humidity, I don't have the temperature, I don't have these problems that most growers would face. And that's what makes this so cheap. Normally with high intensity discharge lamps, you have air conditioners, you have heaters, you have all kinds of different things that you have to implement. With a tent, what I like about a tent is honestly, you gotta think that it's almost like setting up a tent when you were a kid in your living room and you decide to put some Christmas tree lights in there. Those are LED lights. That's what that is up there. You know, then you decide to put some house plants in there. It's not a lot different. You're doing the same thing. So when you actually put all this together, what you end up with is the ability to supply yourself every 60 days with between 1 and 3 pounds of cannabis, depending on the strain and the methodology used to grow it. I think that's the most important part of this video that I wanted to bring. And when I talked about this guy here, the humidity, in this case, most rooms need dehumidifiers because the heat makes so much moisture, because the moisture is evaporating so fast and the plants are using it up, that it causes high RH and you have to down it. So instead of a humidifier, you need a dehumidifier. In this case, you need a cheap little $40 humidifier just to help bring it up, because you don't want the dryness of standard room temperature in the winter. If you're in the winter, you're going to get dry room. And in a dry room, the plant just closes up and it does not produce. It has to be the right climate control at all times. And I can't talk enough about what there's two things. One is fan. You can see this guy moving. And this fan right now is being turned up onto one more dial. And that's just to make it a little more windy in here. And it's like a vortex. It's meant to bounce off the walls and cause a circular motion. Keep the plants happy at all times. There should always be some leaves moving. You can tell these plants here, no autumning off at all. So these ones are nowhere near done yet. They're probably another couple weeks out based on the scope. And that's important to understand too. The air movement here, here, and here. So you got all three. And you want to make sure that you have proper air movement. Now the air movement is not air exchange. Air movement is just the movement in the room that you're moving the air around, but it doesn't make the air fresh. Air exchange, this guy makes air exchange. That's how we make this one work. So it's important to understand this is a muffler, this is a can. You all know cans because that's how well we deal with our smell, whether it's a vapor lounge or a grow room. That's really how you control your smell. This is just being a good neighbor, controlling the sound. And this is of course a hyper fan that's used, as we talked about in an earlier part of the series. That deals solely with the speed and control at which I want to exchange the air. So as noted, it comes with a built-in dimmer switch with a big long cord. So if I wanted to crank it up, you can hear it. Sort of like an airplane taking off. And then it gets evaporating the smell. Now I have absolutely zero problem with this on low, getting rid of all the smell. There's absolutely zero smell with the doors closed with this tent. And to me, that is a selling point for any cannabis connoisseur and or end user that just wants to pop seeds once in a while, wants to play around. The technology is now here, and Spectrum King's only going to get bigger and badder. So check out Pacific Northwest Garden Supply, where you can get these lights, you can get these tents, and certainly look into how you can supply yourself. And remember what I'm telling you here, folks. If you choose not to go LED and deal with some of these problems, and you choose to go with HIDs, high intensity discharge lamps. Those are high pressure sodium or metal halide. Sorry. If you choose to go that route, you're going to do the same thing. You're going to look for the same results, but remember, with the tent, you're not altering the suite, so you're not punching any holes in your wall. You're being a good neighbor, and you're controlling your smell. And that makes you a good grower. Thanks for tuning in and watching Cannabis in Canada, and stay tuned for more tips and tricks from the tent series. Cheers. Okay, so we also want to look around, and we got the parabolic shades going on in here with vertical lighting. We don't usually see the vertical lighting, but these are full spectrum bulbs. So they both got the high pressure sodium and metal halide. But that's the reason for the vertical hanging. Usually you'll see horizontal. But yeah, it's good to see, and you'll see that across the room with the shades. And you'll see again light spectrum. I talked about this on the show because people were asking questions. Well, what's your light spectrum? What's your climate control? What nutrients are you using? And I was trying to explain, guys, this stuff's all dialed in. It was really trying to source out an intricate part, which turns out to be really just dialed down to the water. But just to give you an idea, air movement, it's important. You look at your fans. Every plant in here should have its leaves moving just a little tiny touch to have optimal airflow. I should say optimal air movement. Now, optimal air exchange is the air that you're pulling out of your room and you're re-exchanging it, unless you're running a closed CO2 room, which some people do. In this case, that's not what's going on. So again, your exchange rate is different than your movement. Here nor there, it's been fixed, and that was what this update is about. I'm going to get back to the live feed and where I can continue to talk with you guys about this if there are any questions. But fundamentally, remembering that before you go to the nuclear solution, by killing all your plants and then cleaning out your room and starting over, always look for the solution first. And in this case, it looks like standard flush with peroxide, sterilizing, and making sure that you take care of the plants and the rooting system is proven to be best. And as we've shown with the roots, they're all beautiful and white, so there is certainly not an issue of the roots being unhealthy. It all comes down to the source of the water. And I'm happy to say it appears that the problem's been fixed. So once again, I'm repeating myself a little bit here, but that's what editors are for. This is Jason Wilcox, and we'll see you in the next video. Cheers. I was going to say here, one sec here, I'm doing a couple things at once, but welcome back to the show. We're now closing in, of course, the second half of the show, and we have a guest coming on. We're just trying to figure out our details. I went and spilt my goddamn CBD again. Back. One of those mornings. YouTube's just catching up. So those are some of the 10 series, as well as some of the bigger plants you guys like to see. So again, here on Cannabis Canada, we want to cover everything, and most importantly, teach as much as we can. Yeah, I'm not sure. Keith, can you hear me okay? I can hear you. Yeah. And we can see you. Okay, perfect. I can see you. You're just, yeah, if you can turn your camera sideways, it would probably work better. They can't see you yet. There, that's perfect. Yeah, we can see you. It's just pixelated a bit, but we can see you. Yeah, I got you. It's no big deal. They can't hear you right now. Oh, and maybe they can hear you because you're on open mic. Oh well. There you go. I'm gonna grab you here in screen capture and put you up on the screen. So my friends, Mr. Keith, and I always say this. Well, I want to say Cabral. Is that right? Cabral. I'm getting closer. Guys know this that have done interviews with me over the past decade, that it's after meeting enough people, enough names, it gets hard. But Keith has been working, he's an intelligent fellow, and been working with Cannabis Canada as an administrator for a while, but more importantly, showed interest in wanting to get more involved. And after speaking with him, quite frankly, I've gotten a lot of interest in anytime I meet somebody else that has an intellectual approach, an intelligible approach, to a conversation of a problem that we face here in Canada, I lock onto that and think, hey man, there's a possibility. First off, Keith, welcome to the show. I'm going to throw you in here, picture in picture.
Right on.
Let's check your mic, make sure you're working okay.
Check. We're good?
I'm not sure. Guinevere? Down here, please. Approach to a conversation of there's a delay on this. I'm sorry, bro. I'm gonna have to wait. See, thumbs up, hearts, please, if you guys can hear Mr. Keith Cabral. I'm gonna get this right. I'm gonna get this right.
We'll get it.
Let's check your mic. Make sure you're working okay.
Hello.
Check. Yeah, you're there. I got you. I just listened back myself. My daughter's obviously too busy upstairs. I mean, she's pissing me off again. But hey, welcome to family life.
That's right. I know all about it.
You do, brother. You do. You know, many of us, all of us on Team CNC, many of us have kids. Luckily, mine and Vicky's are grown up and heading off to college and university. Mine's in college, and Vicky's is headed off to university. But Yeah, anyway, enough about that. So Keith is definitely working with the show. So my friends, now Keith is in Ontario, and this is where Brandy wanted me to bring up again this police petition. I see Brandy and Kevin and some of our other Cannabis in Canada crew, and people that just want to fight. They want to say enough's enough. You can't do this, lock up our brothers and sisters, and turn around and have cops driving around high with guns. So that's a big part of it. The other thing, before I gotta get this thrown back in the freezer, was somebody was asking about my shake, and you can see here, this is rock hard. This is just trim, small buds. Remember, you don't use vegetative buds, or you're eating fiber. It's good for you still. It'll help you go to the bathroom, but you're eating fiber and omega-3, 6, and 9, but you're not getting cannabinoids unless you juice your bud and your leaves that actually have trichomes on them. Therefore, you can get trichomes into your body. So anyway, Keith, I do have my camera on for you right now. I'm running at 93%, so I'm going to shut my camera off, so you'll be able to hear me, but you won't be able to see me.
Cool.
Okay. You can see me online still, so. Anyway, Keith, now in Ontario, I couldn't believe when I read about these officers. I'd like to get your take on this, because there's a few people who have contacted me since yesterday's show. I went on a tirade, and I apologize to the people for my cursing and swearing. But you know what? I watched myself and others be treated much worse for not having a gun and fucking being high. So, Keith, what's your thoughts on this whole officers driving with guns in downtown Toronto high and just getting...
Well, here, look, you know, if it was you or I, we wouldn't be going home to our kids.
Correct.
There's no question about it. These guys can't do that, man. Someone's got to be held accountable for it. And I mean, we're going to slap them on the wrist so the next two guys can get high on edibles and do the same thing, maybe run someone over.
And that's been my concern, is that let's take it a step further. Is that what if it had been, hey, maybe we'll take some police evidence and get high on coke today, and then you get paranoid.
Or mushrooms.
Or mushrooms, right?
Yeah, right.
And these guys are trained to shoot to kill, so they're armed with loaded guns. Which with me, I respect guns because I've taken a safety gun course, and I know that you can't be high with guns. So these officers breaking these infractions should have been an automatic, in my opinion. Hand over your gun, hand over your badge. And you're lucky you're not off to the West Detention. Yes, boom, done. You're gone. Now that may be the case. They may have taken their gun, sent them home, but I don't believe they suspended their license. All they're facing is a commission, and they're going to hope that all of us stay quiet. I can assure you.
Sure, forget about it, right?
Exactly. My point is, Torontoians, let us know. Ontarians, let us know, because someone like Keith, who works directly with me, can get a hold of me 24/7 on my cell phone, and we can make things happen fast. We have other connections.
Sure, and I'm in Ontario too. I mean, I'm not far. I mean, anyone can contact me. I'm easy to find.
And if you look where Keith, he's in our. Keith, where can people find you? I mean, I don't give out people's personal information, and
my email is don'tgetlabeled@gmail.
Nice. Don't get
I'm
labeled.
on Instagram. Yeah, I'm on Instagram, Twitter. Don't get labeled. Facebook,
so that's like your handle there, don't get labeled. I like that though. I like that because you know what? I'm tired of them labeling us, and this is part of my issue with those officers. They did Project Claudia. They locked our brothers and sisters up. And if you guys actually read into the particulars like I have, you'll see these officers. They got this. They don't even know. These officers weren't part of the raid on the dispensary. That's what they're not telling you in every report. If you read all the reports, you'll actually see these officers obtained the cannabis from some other source, which would constitute 3 officers, which would make organized crime by definition of the law. Sorry, I just had to weigh in on that. But Keith, honestly, this is your province. Now you've got this crazy, stupid clean air smoking law that says you can't smoke outside. Now you can't smoke in your place. Now, in addition, you've now got the Landlord Tenancy Act of Ontario saying that we're going to do everything we can to stop anybody that's renting, i.e. poor people, that you cannot grow in your house, and thereby infringing on, in my opinion, their constitutional right to liberty. And
of course it is.
Yes. Now, as a Toronto, well, you're not a Torontonian, but as an Ontarian, as a person from Ontario, I'm from Oshawa.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I see Ontario getting torn apart. I watch from BC, but I see Ontario getting torn apart. They have the most number of LPs. largest congregation. It's where they managed to pay off the Toronto Police Force to do Project Claudia. The people that don't, my American friends and friends overseas that are watching today, please understand that the raids, the project we're talking about, Project Claudia, the only other one to even get close to it was the raids of the brothels when brothels were legal in Canada. So it's really crazy. It's really crazy what they did. I'm not going to keep over talking. I got to get you back in the picture here. I'm all over the place this morning, brother. There we go.
It's all good.
There, now we got us both in the picture so that people can see us both. But yeah, so the Clean Air Act is one thing. Now, when I was back there, I think it was last year or the year before, Justin Loizos and I were talking about this crazy Clean Air Act and Dan Pagnudi. You know, and it's like, how do patients, if you can't smoke in a park, if you can't smoke on a city street, people can actually smoke cigarettes and kill themselves on a city street, but they can't smoke cannabis. Now, I'm really confused. I guess the Clean Air Act bans cigarettes too, yes?
Yep.
Okay. Yep. So it bans cigarettes. Now, I guess here's a question. I guess I got to have you on sort of as a guest at this point instead of me just keep rambling. What is your thoughts on that, on the Clean Air Act that's designed for cannabis, or sorry, designed for tobacco, but being implemented on cannabis?
I think they're implementing it on like a whole nother level. Like, if I'm not mistaken, you can't have your cars idling because it affects the air. You can't smoke cigarettes. You can't smoke weed. It affects, like, you used to be able to have a fire in your backyard. Now you can't unless you get permits. Like, it's not just the smoking. Like, patients, we have nowhere to go and smoke. What are we supposed to do? Especially if we're renting. We can't grow our smoke at home. Soon they're going to say we can't smoke it there if we rent either, right?
Correct.
We're just slowly picking away at it. And I mean, unless we all do something about it, they're just going to keep doing it. They're going to implement all these, I don't know, test pilots, I guess.
Well, that's exactly what you're right. These are all test pilots. These are all
yeah, like Ontario's the guinea pig, right? They're going to try everything here, and if it works, we're going to just copy it.
Exactly. Now, how to stop it becomes, now Brandy Lee's in the chat. I don't know if you're monitoring the chat there, but there are people from our own crew within the chat, and they're saying, you know what? Maybe it's time we take it to Mr. Metro. Now, I remember growing up as a kid, and 311 Jarvis, I remember getting rolled down the stairs with handcuffed to the chair as a young offender. I remember being dropped at Cherry Beach, having my shoes taken, and being told to make my own way home through rival neighborhoods. I don't remember all that shit. I don't forget that shit. So I had a different upbringing than some, but I have my own issues with Mr. Metro. But what they're doing now becomes, look, you passed driving laws, you passed all these laws for cannabis, and these two officers are facing a suspension. Versus
with pay, they're getting paid.
Thank you.
They're getting paid,
and I think they're still allowed to drive their cars too to go get groceries and take the wife out.
Sure, they're not on house arrest. I mean, they're probably on some sort of, you know, their surety is probably their wife. Yeah, right. Their surety is probably their wife or their best friend. You know, someone they do all their shit with anyway. They're probably each other. They're probably sureties of each other for, you know, who knows.
Well,
who knows? They seem to get away with whatever they want, and what they did this time has gone too far, man.
Well, this is it. They went too far. Well, you see, as I was doing my research, I seen that there's previous cases, like in America. I was joking about the officers that called, thought he was dying. Report ratted himself out. There's been other officers caught on film stealing edibles. But these two officers, I want people to put this into a picture without understanding. I'm going to do two things. I'm going to make it funny first. Two officers, they got to understand these two idiots chose to come to work, get high. And when I say idiots, because they have loaded guns. And if you don't know the drug you're taking and you got a loaded gun, then you're a fucking idiot. Plain and simple. You're not a gangbanger, you're not on the street, and fucking that's how people get shot and killed accidentally. So I do take that serious. If I expect that peace officers are to uphold the law and not harm its civilians, then driving around with a loaded gun, trying to climb a tree, stumbling around, saying that you're to the point of unconsciousness with a 5-ton vehicle or whatever your police car weighs, and you and your partner have to pull your car over and call for help because you're too afraid to get out of your own fucking cop car. Now, to me, exactly, to me, this is an infringement of not only the gun laws, that you can't be high with your gun. Now they can say it was an accident. I don't believe it's an accident. Anytime you eat something, it's not an accident. You knew what you were doing. You just didn't know it was going to fuck you up that bad. So
no, they didn't know they were going to get caught.
That too. They didn't know that. Well, they didn't know they'd have to rat themselves out because the one partner said I was cautiously nauseous. You notice how one partner's not in the newspaper and the other partner is. That's because one partner checked himself into a public hospital, which any of us gangsters know in our past years. I hate using that term gangster, but that's what the government wants to deem us as cannabis growers. So we know from the past, you don't go to the hospital ever. Toxicology and fucking and everything they get there, you can't. You're done. It's public record. That officer made it public record.
Well, this morning I read a thing on the same thing, and they mentioned the other officer. It was Constable Jamie Young, is the other guy.
Okay, so they do have a name for him now. Good.
Yeah, and he's actually a 2-year. He's actually, I would say, the rookie, because he's a 2-year. Audio. Your audio.
My audio? No, your audio is good.
You're good.
Guinevere, check please. Yeah. Audio good?
You're good now. You're good now.
Yeah. No, don't. Sometimes people will post that to interrupt our discussion. Don't worry, bro. I've got my daughter monitoring the audio.
He's fine.
So they mentioned his name was Jamie Young, if I'm not mistaken, but he's actually the 2-year veteran. The other guy that turned himself in at the hospital, he's the 10-year veteran. So he was the more experienced of the bunch. It's the younger guy that knew better.
Now this is the thing, and when I say I wanted to draw a funny contrast to it, there's a funny part of these two officers. I could almost see them hiding under their blankets like, oh fuck, please get here soon. What are we going to say to the supervisor? I don't know, man. Being paranoid. Now that's funny as shit. That's a comedy skit. But the flip side to this is, let's just say that officer yesterday, who by their own admission, one of them was hallucinating so severely he could not tell certain things. Now of course that makes for their idiocy defense, I guess, is in their way. But I would point out to people that it is very important to remember, as I've already said before, these people have guns. When you got an officer driving downtown, now again, this is the dark side, follow me here. Conjecture, speculation, possibilities, coulda, woulda, shoulda, doesn't matter. These officers, if it was me, I'd be locked up right now in the fucking West Detention. I already know that, awaiting trial. But anyway.
No question.
They drove around that fucking downtown metropolitan area, endangering the public. They broke their oath to uphold the law. They chose to get behind that vehicle and drive. All the stuff they're locking our brothers and sisters up for and taking their cars for, they did.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
So how do we hold them to account? How do you think is the best approach to holding them to account? I got a few ideas, but I want to hear from the Torontoians and Ontarians that I know. Man, we're fucking strong in Ontario. I'm from Ontario.
Well, yeah, we are.
Tough motherfuckers.
Well, here's the thing, right? They want to do all these, make examples and test pilots in Ontario. Well, make an example of these two cops and fire their ass, take their pensions, strip them from everything.
Exactly.
I mean, why do they get the right? In what, a month, 6 weeks, maybe 2 months, they're back in their car driving around at other raids? Come on.
Exactly, and
they're just gonna be smoother next time. They'll eat the edibles at home, right? They won't go out. They won't go to the hospital.
And I mentioned this on yesterday's show. I mean, how many officers are actually driving? And this is why I'm calling for it now. And this is part of where, if Torontoians have had enough, you guys gotta tell me if you had enough. Because here in BC, our police do not treat us like criminals. And our police do not drive around, and if they did, they'll have activists like myself and many others all over their ass, social justice activists. Forget the cannabis. You were high with a gun, under an oath to uphold the law, and you drove around downtown Toronto where you could have, one, you were hallucinating. I'm going to go back to this. It's important. If you're hallucinating, you got a gun, you got a shotgun in the trunk, and you're in a police uniform, you already make people nervous. While you're hallucinating, well, the guy that you made a little nervous, you might think he has a weapon and you fucking shoot him.
Yep, and bang, just like that.
That's why guns and drugs...
It's a game changer, right?
Well, guns and drugs don't go together, and we need to, until this country... Now, again, I love guns. I believe you have a right to bear arms. But I also don't believe that young kids should be shot innocently in the street. I don't believe that fucking cops should be driving around drunk and setting a bad example for other cops, or not drunk or high or whatever, with their guns.
No, they should serve and protect, just like it says on their car and on their uniform and that oath they take.
Correct.
And ripping off dispensaries and fucking tripping out on edibles is not serving and protecting anything. Shit, you didn't even protect your fellow officers.
Correct. And this is the thing, and they've been doing this. Now, somebody on yesterday's show was right. They said, look, these officers are just protecting each other. Jason, they're going to keep doing that. And I reminded them that, yes, and for 16 constitutional challenges, I've watched the government fuck medical cannabis users for the word marijuana. But you know what? When they came out and they said, you're not going to grow again because of fire, mold, and organized crime, all we did was an SEO media web search for any statistical data to support that. Because that was their balance of convenience. That was their case in whole. And when we knew they couldn't provide it, people would tell me that they're above the law. No, they're not. Nothing is above the Constitution of this country, and nothing is above the will of the people. The problem is in Canada is that we're sheeple more than we're people.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I see that a lot. Sheeple. Yeah, for sure.
I just have to be honest, and I'm not dogging my Canadian friends. What I'm doing is saying, we got to stop laying down and fighting each other over scraps off the table of this fucking federal government. When we elected them, we put them in power. We're free and democratic people. This plant in a federal trial has already been proven to be harmless. It can't hurt you. In RV Smith, two major cases, the Supreme Court of Canada said you can use cannabis in all of its forms. Leave them the fuck alone or don't come back to these chambers. Basically is what the Chief Magistrate said. Anyway, in Allard, we also proved that cannabis in all of its forms is safe, effective, to be grown and or used by an individual, thereby not producing any public safety, rather irreparable harm to the end user if you take that right away, that ability away, that regulatory option away. It's not a right in this country to grow the plant, so I got to be careful in my language. It is a regulatory option to grow a plant.
That's right.
So now,
that's right.
Yeah, as I pull up this, I'm going to jump in the chat here. I'm going to put you on full screen here, Keith. You got the board here for a sec. You go ahead and fill in people there, because what I'm going to do is look at the chat. I have a few ideas that I'm going to lay down on how we as a collective nation can attack the Metropolitan Police Force and have them hold those two officers to account, just like they've been trying to hold all of our brothers and sisters to account after Project Claudia. I think tit for tat, it's time for that. Keith?
Well, I know that another one of our admins, Brandy, I was talking to her this morning, and I think that, you know, there's going to be definitely a petition going around, and, you know, something just has to be done. We can't just sit down and I'm not in Toronto, right? I'm outside of Toronto, but I'm from there. Like you, I'm a Durham right?
Were you South Oshawa or North Oshawa?
Yeah, South.
Same as me. I went to Vista High School. Lake Vista was my... And then Vanier.
I lived right on Fenland, and I lived right there.
Then, of course, Vanier, where they threw all of us retards when we couldn't do anything before I got locked up. But, yeah, then I went to Brookside Youth Center from 16 to 18, so out there in Cobourg. For all of us Ontario friends that understand the young offender system, well, that's it.
My sister worked in it.
And for those who've ridden the Blue Goose, so have I. When I was younger and learned how to not get in trouble anymore was when I was in my 20s. Since then, I have not had any criminal problems, but I know my whole, I know them.
No, and it's funny because I went through a shitstorm of my own. I got raided for 32 clones. 32 clones, yeah. I did 9 months. I did 9 months on it. Yeah, I did 9 months and then 2 years probation, and I had to plead. I had to, yeah. Well, no, I didn't have to, but there was more than just the clones, right? Like I was a medical patient. There, you know, I had weed, but I was within the amount I'd be able to have. I wasn't allowed to have clones though. Fuck, I wasn't allowed to go dance. I think I know the question that you might be asking, but go ahead. Yeah. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Aurelia and I'm with GeoPlanter. I'm here at Green Planet Wholesale today, so don't mind if there's a little bit of background noise. It's a busy store. Anyway, I wanted to give a little bit of information today about GeoPlanter as well as fabric containers to kind of give you a little education of why they've gotten to be so popular and how they help for you to get larger yields. So we'll first off talk about fabric containers. First thing is that makes them different than, let's say, a plastic container is. When you have a plastic pot and the roots actually hit the edge, they start wrapping around looking for nutrients and waters, and that's going to be the same roots, not extra roots, but the same roots looking for that. And what happens is they get what's called root bound and kind of can lock up. With a fabric container, what's different, there's two folds. First off is that you're going to get a lot of aeration because it's a fabric, so it's going to have a lot of breathability. The second thing is that when the roots, and when they actually hit the edge, when they get to any kind of a dry surface, so it's either going to be at the edge or even through it a little bit, when it hits the air, it's going to get naturally pruned. So further back on the root branch, wherever there's going to be moisture, another root is going to grow. And then further back on that root, another one will grow. So you end up with a massive ball of roots that's absorbing that much more water and nutrients that shoots up to give you higher yields, more vegetables, more fruits, or more fuller flowers. So that's kind of why they've gotten to be so popular. And so anyway, so that's that with the fabric containers. The first thing is we decided to use a thicker fabric, and that thicker fabric really helps with durability and lifespan. Now, a lot of people ask, does that mean it's going to get in the way of breathability? And I always say, well, the best way to test it is actually to breathe through it for yourself. So you actually can pick it up, breathe through it, and you can still feel that aeration happening. So that's the one big thing. The other thing is that we're really well known for our stitching. Everything is hand sewn. And we've created this top lip here and had a nice seam done just so that it's easier to keep it open and full and rigid, so that it looks really great and it's a lot easier to use and to fill, as well as if you're trying to water it, it's going to have that rigidity and stability, and it's not going to sag like you'll see some other fabric containers over time. So those are the two big points, is the thicker fabric and the sewing. We are known for our quad stitching, which runs down the side here, as you see. We also have square bottoms for our smaller sizes. That really just helps to put it into trays. It does round out at the top so that it fills out. That really kind of helps with the seamlessness of it. So those are the kind of the
one of those fucky mornings. Good morning, everybody. We're back.
All right.
But how many people do 2 hours a day and then bring a guest on in the second hour and say, you know what, motherfuckers, we're going to keep doing this? But that's okay. We're heading to the island tonight. We got to get on a boat. My wife right now is getting her hair done. She got her nails done yesterday, and all that stuff that the women do to get ready to go on these trips. I tell you, I sit here and I just I do a few push-ups and you do a couple curls and throw on my track pants and I'm good to go. But women need to do this thing, so whatever. Women are their own breed. I'm learning this as I'm now engaged. I'm learning that they're very much so their own breed. You just kind of got to learn to work with it.
That's right.
So yeah, I switched off on you again here, Keith. Switched topics there, but What were we just covering? What we were covering that important, and we had that fucking glitch.
We were talking. I was talking about being rated, and you were going to ask me something. I'm going to say so. So I can grow now.
Then you weren't. Then you weren't convicted.
Yeah.
Correct.
I was convicted. Yeah.
You were convicted, and you can grow.
Yeah. Because in those 3 questions where they asked you if you were charged, convicted, or something else.
Yeah.
See, I wasn't sure either. What happened is I was misreading those 3 questions, and I had a lady actually break it down for me. And at the end of those questions, it says, while you were on the program, on the previous program, it's the last sentence on all 3. If you were convicted of a crime.
It says, were you ever convicted of a cannabis crime, I believe. I can pull it up here in the broadcaster, and we can look at the exact language if you want, but it's, I think it's something along those lines.
Yeah, and then at the end of each question, it'll say, while you were on the old MMAR, and the next one will say, while you were on a different program, and each one of them is actually asking you if you got charged while you were on those programs.
This is important information, everybody. Let me just cut back.
To be a designated grower, I cannot. The second I be a DG, they want your criminal record, your history, all that stuff. You cannot grow for other people if you've been convicted of any drug-related offenses. But medicinally,
for personal use, it would make sense.
For yourself.
Yes.
Yes, you can for yourself.
That would make sense because of medical autonomy issues, medical autonomy rights.
Yeah, because I waited a long time. See, I got screwed the first time. They held my shit at Health Canada for 4.5 months for it to expire, and then they sent it back and said, sorry, it expired. So I went and got another license. I got it like the 20th of September, and then I express posted it to them. They got it on the 22nd. But when I just called last week, she said, nope, everything's fine. You're good. It's in processing. It shouldn't be too much longer.
Okay. So in processing, not too much longer. Well, that
could mean anything. Yeah, it could mean anything.
No, but this is very important.
But I know other people that have cannabis offenses that are under the ACMPR.
Absolutely.
But they were never on the MMAR, any of the other ones. MMAR, MMPR.
Yeah, the MMPR didn't last long. That's the one we quashed in Allard. We literally abolished. We didn't seek to abolish the program. We sought to only protect home growing and reasonable access as a result of home growing and protected such. But the judge seen so much more that he abolished the entire program and told the government to come back with something that was constitutional. Their response was to come back and give us the ACMPR, which in essence is the MMAR replicated, and barring the 150 gram rule and a couple other stupid fucking rules they've added. But other than that, it's the same thing. I would remind everybody in this country that we are on a 5-year test period with the ACMPR. So failure to invoke your right to grow, a doctor cannot prescribe to you. You don't have to be sick. A doctor authorizes. Mind you, there's a lot less doctors authorizing, but that's all they do. So, Keith, I'm very interested in this. So now, explain again, because I've never even heard about this. I want to know this because I advocate for a lot of people that actually have criminal records, and they've been trying to, and this has been one of my pet peeves, to be honest. I've had this pet peeve with the government over one, not exonerating. If you're going to legalize, then have legislation to let all of our brothers and sisters out of jail. If it's cannabis only crimes, I mean, if they had a loaded gun and fucking cocaine in the trunk as well, it's a different story. But I mean, if it's cannabis only, they were just growing or using cannabis, or like Keith got caught with some clones, they should have been exonerated already, like cleared, or at least legislation on there. Now they've got legislation tabled. Is my understanding. But then again, Justin Trudeau just yesterday in the town hall meeting said there's nothing that's been tabled. So I don't.
Yeah. So who knows, right?
Exactly. And now here's the thing. So when you applied for your ACMPR, and I want people to understand this because there's a lot of people who think because you have a speeding record or because you have a DUI or because you have an assault record, none of this shit applies. So many people ask me this, and I tell you, read the language. It's very important. It's only a cannabis-related offense, and now Keith is breaking it down even further, because I didn't know this, and this is very important to our MMAR friends because many of us got caught up in the crossfire of prohibition. Though we were legal, we still got caught up in the court system.
That's right. See, and that's where this new ACMPR, those 3 questions when you're actually applying, one is the 10 years, have you been convicted of marijuana or cannabis offense? But if you look at the very last little part of that clause, it says, while you were on whatever program. The next one will be while you were, because I had the same thing, right? I didn't get off probation until 2 years ago.
Oh shit.
So I was like, fuck this, I can't grow, right? You know, telling my wife, all right, you're going to get your ACMPR kind of thing, right? But I actually had somebody go way out of their way and get right into detail about that application, and they broke it down for me, and they introduced me to people that actually have cannabis offenses that are growing under the ACMPR, so it's doable. I mean, you can't be a designated grower, you cannot grow for anyone else, no sir. But if you're going to grow for yourself, especially if you got caught for growing, come on, man.
Also, I think this all comes down fundamentally, and I'm not a lawyer, and I'm not claiming to be that, but my understanding of the fundamental right in Parker, everybody thinks Parker won the right to grow plants. No, he didn't. He proved that he had a medical right to put into his body. Now, this is a right upheld by the
autonomy.
Yeah,
right
to autonomy, medical autonomous use of the body, and that means you can put anything. If you feel like eating grass is going to cure your cancer, you can go out and be a cow and eat grass all day long, and there's no law that can stop you. Cannabis is no different. Nope. They have to show harm to the public or harm to the person. If not, they can't govern it. Though they keep trying because it's worth, multi-billions of dollars now, though they're trying to, it's fundamentally and constitutionally flawed to attempt to. Keith?
Yep. I'm pulling up the application. I'm just curious.
Well, if you're pulling, I can pull the application. The only thing is I got to pull you off screen for like 2 seconds. Can you send me the application link to the ACMPR, please? Just so we can show people what we're talking about on the actual forms. I've done how to fill out your ACMPR forms here before, but this is new information that even I didn't know, and it's very important.
Well, when you just went through it the other day, and I remembered when I seen that, I'll have it here in a second. When I seen that one, it says, have you been convicted in the past 10 years? Bang. And right when you see that, you automatically get that, oh man, I'm not fucking qualifying. I won't get this,
Well, that's how, no, but they do this almost, I call this the fuckery of the government. They've been doing this since the beginning with the applications. A good example is the first year application, they put that box in for renewal. Almost every person that had an MMAR went and put their fucking number in there because they thought that's what they wanted. Why would they send a renewal form when it's the first year? Add the renewal form in the second year, but again, it's meant to trick you. If you just miss one T, don't dot one I, they'll send that application back and it's fuckery. Then you'll wait another 3 months. You'll get so deterred that you'll just end up going in and obtaining it somewhere else. So you'll end up breaking the law and growing. And that often leads to dissent and deception and really, quite frankly, breaks up families and marriages all the time because people believe and they understand they have a right to grow this plant or an ability to grow this plant, but then they also feel like they're stuck between this paperwork. So
here it is.
Yeah, should you have to wait 3 months for paperwork? Now the lawyers will tell you no. Now what happened with my lawyers, they held my license from January to October. I called John Conroy, I gave him a copy, I showed him, I said, they even sent my license back a second time asking for additional information I've never heard of. John said, oh yeah, well they're allowed to under section blah, blah, blah. It's very rare that they would ask for that. And I'm like, well, they're fucking with me then. He goes, let me make a couple phone calls. 2 days later, I got an email from the head of the ACMPR, and John Conroy was CC'd, that my license was in the mail that day. So what bothers me about that is that it's not tooting my horn, it's that I got showed favoritism by the ACMPR. Tells me that if one person can be done, we all could be done just as quick. There's a reason and a tactic behind delaying these licenses.
Well, here's my theory on their tactics. So people get a 1-year prescription, right? And if they hold up your growing permit for 6 months, like in 4 months, how many crops you gonna pull? You know, another 6 months, how many crops you gonna pull off, right? They're gonna limit your amount of grows by holding up your license, right? Then you got to renew, go through the whole process again. But in between renewal and your actual license, you know, there's going to be that void, and that's where people are going to get caught up. I'm already seeing it. You know, people are waiting, you know, 7, 8, 9, 10 weeks for their renewal, and their license is, you know.
You know, you're on track. This is what we need to. The reason I'm staying quiet is because I talk too much. I need to allow other patients to actually get out what it is that they're facing, because my God, Ontario in this country is getting screwed after we spent, again, the government and us spent the government spent 1.2 million fighting us. They had to spend back 780,000 to us. So if you put the two together, they almost spent $2 million trying to keep plants out of this country based on lies and conjecture. And no mainstream media wants to cover it. Now, for 16 years, I've been watching this program, 16 constitutional challenges, I don't know, since 2001 until present day. I don't even know how many years that's been. I've been monitoring the program and going through this from the Section 56 days to present day, and understanding that we have a medical right to autonomy, autonomous use of the body. And as long as we keep circling back to that, the government cannot corner and hijack this product. We cannot Monsanto this product like they did corn. People would...
Oh, I know.
I know, if people only knew all the multi-spectrum colors of corn and different strains of corn that could have been farmed and bred if Monsanto didn't get involved.
Yeah.
So that's something that's never talked about. And I don't want to seem like I'm a Alex Jones or again, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. What I am is a realist. And what I'm looking at... Well, sorry, Keith.
Fact is fact. You can't hide from the truth, right? It's what it is. We call it how it is because that's how it is. I mean, it's not stuff we're making up. It's just fact, right? It's what it is.
Correct. And this is where the government, well, again, what we're saying is fact. A lot of people will say is conjecture, is speculation. A few people will challenge me directly, or if they do, you know, what's good about being on the air for 10 years and being the client in Allard is I have access to every person that donated and every legal document used in Allard. And that's what makes it a historic case, and it allows us to know where we're at and to see the government changes and to see, you know, everybody thinks we're all safe. We're all sitting comfortably with our ACMPR permits. And those are there's others thinking that you're safe under injunction. I'm going to point one thing out to everybody. The federal government of Canada, if they thought the ACMPR meant the constitutional validity of Allard, if they thought that that was good enough for a long-term permanent program, wouldn't they seek to undo the injunction that's protecting 28,000 much larger prescription gardens?
You would absolutely think so, wouldn't you?
You would. And this lends to why haven't they sought to undo it? And as you'll see in the Coalition documentary, Mr. Conroy does talk about them analyzing us for the next 5 years. I believe that they're going to emulate whatever the general consensus of Canada is, the non-medical users. We got to stop accepting ourselves as non-medical.
Yeah, I don't even know what that means.
Look at cannabis as a multivitamin. And if we start to educate, the general public will get tired of the government trying to monopolize them through false policy. Non-scientific policy and non-biological policy.
That's right.
It's serious. It's serious.
Yeah, it is. It's not just this that they do it with, though. That's the thing, right? And they keep getting away with it.
This is it. Well, they keep getting away with it, but 16 constitutional challenges later, we're here now saying, look, we can grow, but you can already see where Manitoba has said we're not going to allow home growing. Other people said we're not.
Correct.
I don't trust politicians because they can repeal stuff and claw stuff back as long as it's not ordered by the courts. So patients are protected right now, but it doesn't mean that the government can't walk back in front of Justice Field and say, you know what, Your Honor, we're still not going to allow home growing in Canada. We believe that the test of reasonable access has been met. We've got our dispensaries, we've got our microbreweries, we've got 88 companies now. It's not like it was in 2012 when I picked a fight with them. And there was only 2 or 3 of them. Now there's 88 of them. So the test in the courts is not, do you have a right to grow a plant? It's a test of, do you have reasonable access to medically treat yourself with cannabis? And if you do have reasonable access, I can assure you they will take your right to grow a plant away. And again, it's all about the bottom dollar.
Well, they've just got to meet that, right? Reasonable access.
And that
of all forms, if they can meet that, then I mean,
that's a good point. You know, I got my juicing leaves. Actually, can you throw these back in the freezer before they melt anymore? End up going all moldy on me. Just my juicing stuff that I use for my shakes. It's just an example of, once again, an argument that would be brought forth in the future. One, there would be the argument of how much it costs to grow with LEDs, etc., versus the pricing scheme of the government. My concern is that they've been lobbying provincial formularies, and first off, they've been lobbying provincial formularies to cover medical cannabis for patients. And I will say medical cannabis, for the first time out of our 16-year program, the ACMPR Allard forced them to stop calling it marijuana with an H, a slang word that meant nothing, and to go back to its go back to its true botanical and pharmacopoeia name, which is cannabis sativa L. So they went back to cannabis. That's one step short of putting it back into pharmacopoeia. Then provincial formularies could cover it. Then your doctors can actually prescribe it. But then they'll have the non-medical users. And I go back to saying this should be in herbology. This should be allowed for us to share this out as a multivitamin. It should not be controlled like a gun. It should not be controlled by pharmaceutical companies. Let them make what they want with it, but it shouldn't be controlled solely by them. And I know I'm ranting a little bit here, but
no, nobody should have control over it, right? It should be for everybody. Everyone should be able to just do what they want with it.
This is it.
You know?
Well, that's what, in essence, that's what the Supreme Court of Canada said in R.V. Smith. I was in the chambers. I mean, we took a busload of patients there from Toronto. Honestly, in the chambers, the Chief Justice said to the Crown, don't ever bring another case into our chambers and waste our time. Again, patients can have cannabis in all of its forms was in the decision. That was because the Supreme Court is saying you're wasting our time with this. You know, the knowledge is there, everything's there. Again, the judicial arm in Canada has been fighting with the legislative arm all this time over cannabis. And what I've been trying to report on is the global monopolization of cannabis, legalization globally. Do you see the same thing from your side? I mean, this is just, again, my own perception from what I've seen.
It's funny. You say it's funny you ask me that. It's hard not to see. It's hard not to see because they're being blatantly open about it now. Like, shit. Here's the thing. See, I was just going to say, I've been waiting a couple years. I've said on my show, eventually you guys are going to read about this in the papers, and it won't be just Jason Wilcox saying it on a fucking show anymore. No.
That's an important part of it.
Yeah, that's not the case. It's happening. I mean, I was watching this thing on Instagram today, and I had a little rant, and it was Greenhouse. It was Aryan, and he's like, yeah, we're at our Canadian facility, at our grow facility, and he's showing all these chambers and grow rooms and all this stuff, and I kind of commented, like, what do you mean, Canada? Like, how can... I just find it funny that this American arm can come into Canada and fucking set up shop and tie right in with the LPs and start pushing cannabis. Like, that's really what it is, right? The bottom dollar. And yet, Canadians with a 30-year-old record get banned from the States just for smoking a joint in '69? Like, just doesn't make sense to me.
I'm with you on this one. I just got a link here that was sent in from Brandy. One sec here. I'm just gonna see if I'm able. I still got you on there. I'm just gonna see if I can pull this up. Because this is an interesting article. Let's see if I can open this up from how it was sent to me, which I think I can, like that. Check. All right, so audio is still working. So I'll send this over. Now we were touching on this earlier, but I want people to see that already Brandy has taken the initiative, and I'm going to remove my logo here for a sec.
Oh yeah, I know.
There you go. Join the campaign. So you'll see this on your screen here. Might be a bit of a delay, but you'll see it on your screen. And it's 213 division officers should be fired. I would add fired and or charged for being high with a gun. I think the public need to understand this isn't just about officers getting high. This is about officers driving high with loaded guns in the downtown streets of Toronto.
Public safety.
Public safety, 100%. Not to mention they took an oath to uphold the law, not to break it.
Right, and to serve and protect. So driving around high with guns on your hip, climbing fucking trees is not protecting anything.
Exactly. All right. So I'm just going to pull this down so you guys can see that you can start the petition up top there. You can get involved. There are people who have signed on. I'll be signing on to this. It can be shared through Facebook and Twitter. You may only see 11 signatures, but believe me, if you want to see change, this is how you do change. And in fact, I'm going to add my email right now.
Is there a link to that? Like, can we stick it in maybe the chat and have the chat share that around?
I'll stick this in the chat right now. I think Brandy's already put it in the chat. I'm going to throw it on my chat for YouTube as well.
Yeah. The thing is this might have happened in Toronto, but.
Well, I can tell you, if it was here, I would be going after them. I'm sure there's bad apples in every police force. That part, but it's just the difference is BC activists I know would not tolerate that based on the present laws and the present ways that they went about things. Even here in BC, they went nicely. They did a lottery to shut down our dispensaries. They used non-police action because they didn't want a huge pushback from the people. So they were cautious about how they did that. Damn it, why did I lose that? There it is. All right, sorry, I wanted to show you guys. So grab that link, guys. I'm gonna grab it here as well, and then I can put it into YouTube. But grab that link, and remember, this wasn't done very long ago. That Robert W., I believe that's Robert W. Laurie probably. Now that's a lawyer that's signing this. So my friends, this is no joke. This is people saying enough is enough. If you're a social justice activist, you don't need to use cannabis to be a social justice activist. You just need to believe in society and believe in what's right from what's wrong. And if officers driving with guns high and only being sent home to their wives is okay with you, then that, I don't know what's happening to our country. Because these are civil servants put in place to serve and protect, not to get high with guns and drive downtown Toronto downtown city streets, quite frankly.
Breaking everyone's balls over cannabis, and on the right hand, they're stealing it and fucking taking it with their buddies.
Correct.
I don't know, man. Some double standards for sure, and something's got to be done because it's already bad enough that all these companies are coming in hijacking this industry, so they think, and now we got cops thinking that they're above the law because they are the law.
That's it. And it's been this way for a long time. We've dealt with corrupt cops. We've dealt with,
sure have, yeah.
You know, and I have to admit that even since I was a youngster, I remember paying cops that would take a stack and drive on by and leave us alone to do what we were doing on our corner. And that is a corruption of Mr. Metro. So do I think there's a lot of cops driving around high or drunk? Yes. It's when they get caught, just like us, So when you get caught,
yep.
If you're going to persecute my brothers and sisters, throw them in jail, you should be in the West Detention eating a fucking rubber sandwich like everyone else this morning. But instead,
that's right.
Instead, you're at home with your wife and you're on a little minor suspension, I think, like you said, with pay.
Sure, with pay, yeah.
So my friends...
They're only suspended long enough so they can get a new a pot license and have it backdated 2 months.
Exactly.
That's what they do. I'm on to them already.
I would love to... I would love to see the... shoot, I was just going to check into YouTube here for a second. I would love to check to see what our YouTube friends think of craziness in Canada, because that's where YouTube is interesting, because they're starting to realize, hey guys, we are watching. The reason I can't get into the YouTube chat as easy right now is because of the... I guess I got to sign into my own chat. How the hell does that work? Okay, cool. I have to sign into my own chat, so be it. Oh shit, I can see myself on there. That doesn't help. Oh well. Going through what it is what it is. Send that back over, make sure it's fucking cleaned out. Jesus. That pops right up there. Okay, so our friends in YouTube, let's see what else. Cops, weedy every day on the job. This isn't news. The bacon union's already laughing at anyone. It's not about whether it's news that cops use weed, it's that these cops got caught, were parked in downtown Toronto and covered themselves up in their car and called for fucking help. Another officer smashed his head, fell down on the ice and hit his head. Come and just help these two retards. Then one of them had to go to the hospital because he was hallucinating so bad. I would remind everybody, officers hallucinating with fully loaded 9mm Brownings is a concern. If anybody's ever seen the damage of a 9mm Browning, this is no joke. And officers are trained to shoot and kill. So if they're hallucinating with that gun, that's another federal offense. So this isn't an ethics issue. This is a fucking take their badge, take their gun, charge them, and get them out of your force issue. %.
Fucking start there. Start right there.
And
with enough pressure from the community, so I don't think they're just gonna walk away this time.
No, they can't, because I actually showed yesterday, I mean, I'm sure today they're up to 3 pages. There was 2 whole pages of Google.
Oh yeah.
Pages of these officers, and people are laughing all around the world at Canada. Because while these same officers, not these officers, but this same group of officers, Metro officers, seem to be on the boards of directors and following Mr. Bill Blair's lead all around this country, setting up to sell us the very cannabis they've locked us up for all these years. There's a hypocrisy in this democracy that we need to fix, or we are not the free and democratic people we say we are. We are nothing more than sheeple. And I'm going to keep calling you guys that until you guys start to do something more. If 55% of this country voted to legalize, did we vote to legalize and criminalize? And did we vote to legalize to once again, to have a Reefer Madness 2.0, to legalize it and say it's free, but it's heavily restricted? That's what I kept finding funny about Justin Trudeau's language, was he kept saying, we're going to legalize but heavily restrict. And that just didn't click with my head. What do you mean legalize and heavily restrict? It's already heavily restricted, so why legalize if you're just going to continue?
When I go in...
No, go ahead, Keith.
When I go in, when I type into Google, I just typed in Canadian cops and edibles.
I know, eh?
And there's 655,000 results.
That's so shit. I didn't know it was that big.
Like, come on.
Well, that tells you...
600...
That tells you how many people are talking about this particular topic and why we need to get this link that's been put into the chats, shared by Brandy. I'm going to get on top of it. I'm going to ask our webmaster to get it out onto our website and allow people to at least get this petition going. Once the petition is signed by enough people, especially Torontonians, you know, this is where you gotta understand, you need to really use your voice if you live in the metropolitan region, because this is one of your officers. Moreover, Ontario. But people from BC and other places, we can send the petition and say it's not right, but it's not going to have as much weight as individual letters from Torontonians saying these police officers endangered my family, my kids, my aunts, my uncles, my grandma, my grandpa, whatever, in the process of their fuck up. Therefore, I want them gone.
Especially people in the 13 division like area. Those are the impact statements there, right? The people that live right there in that 13 division.
And that's the correct language, is impact statements, my friends, because that's, remember, we took in 3,000 to pick our 4 plaintiffs in Allard. 3,000 impact statements, and we gave them all to the judge. So the judge could see just how many people to fear. Honestly, 50% of those impact statements wasn't about losing their garden. It was about their fear of being forced back of pharmaceuticals because they couldn't afford the pricing scheme being set forth by the LPs.
That's right.
So I know we're jumping around here. I'm going to take like a 5-minute break just so I can catch my breath and do a dab. Keith, would you like to stay on, or you got to go?
Well, it's getting that time. I got 4 kids to pick up.
Yeah, I was just going to say, and I got
3 kids
I got a wife just about finishing her nails. So I'm going to cut off to, again, a police video where I stopped the police at the door. I think the more we talk about this, we can see how police officers have treated us. This is back in 2010. I played it yesterday, the day before. This is back in 2010. And if you give them respect, you'll get some. But it also shows how they need to be held to account. And I will always say, put the shoe on the other foot. Imagine if it was you, and always look at the darker side. Imagine if you woke up today to find out that one of your family members were killed by one of those officers because they were fucking high with guns, hallucinating, and either drove their car into somebody, climbed a tree and accidentally shot their gun, fell down out of the tree and accidentally discharged their gun. We don't know if they got one in the chamber. The guy was hallucinating and paranoid. He could have fucking put one in the chamber.
Even, that's the whole thing, man. Like, something's got to be done with these guys. And that's what I was going to say. This isn't, another thing is, I know we're talking a lot about these cops and like all this crap. It's not a cop bashing thing. It's just a simple factual, you know, you're high, with fucking guns on your side, and you're to serve and protect the community. How the fuck?
That's just it. That's the long and short of it. And again, I said this on yesterday's show. Here in BC, I get along with a lot of officers. I see them as doing their job just like any other civil servant. But if we're all equal before and under the law, like Section 15 of the Charter of Rights and Freedom says, and our Constitution says, that supersedes everything, then there's no excuse for these officers to be on suspension. They should be fired immediately.
Yeah.
Now, if you're saying
suspension for what?
Yeah, suspension pending an investigation. What do you need to investigate when the officers have toxicology, have admitted to using stolen cannabis from a dispensary, stolen police evidence? I could go on with the list of fucking charges these officers could face, but instead,
I know.
They're at home resting. And I've even gotten some emails saying you may not want to go after Mr. Metro. You know what? I've been fucking with Mr. Metro since I was a kid. I will never stop fighting. Again, this isn't about the Metropolitan Police Force. It's about the civilians of Toronto and Canada saying, please, Metropolitan Police Force, police your own in accordance with the laws of this land.
Yeah. How can you guys go around kicking in doors and arresting people for all these cannabis offenses, and yet your very own are kicking in doors, stealing product, and using it on the job?
Exactly.
Come on. Yeah, not okay.
Yeah, and it wouldn't matter now if this story was on, like today, for instance, if this story was on officers using coke or officers using heroin or fentanyl or anything else and calling for help, I would be reporting on this the exact same way. Because it's a social justice issue. It's not just a Canada issue. It's not just a Toronto issue. It is a fucking national, integral issue that we need to look at. Because police officers are not held to the... And I want people to understand this, and it needs to be probably something that Brandy might want to add to that petition. We need to remind people of what police officers are held to with respect to drug testing, and how easy it is they can bypass the drug test like the Olympic guys do. There's all kinds of nasty shit going on, and that's going to be the nature of the beast.
Well, I'll tell you how I got police in my family, 3 of them actually, and yeah, you know, their drug tests. I know that one of their drug tests.
I know.
Yeah, they're like, here, just take this home and bring it back in the morning. Just gotta go in the fridge. You can't stay out for longer than 24 hours. Like, the stipulations aren't, you you know, whether it's even yours or not, it's, you know, you got 24 hours to bring us a urine sample, a clean urine sample. That's what it is. You got 24 hours to bring us a clean urine sample.
And now that's what I was trying to talk about, guys, about the ability, because what they do is they wear, their buddy pisses in a bag the night before, and they take that in, and they can't tell on toxicology because it was literally the next before that morning. They bring in this little bag. All they have to do is go in the bathroom, empty that bag into a little vial as if they took a piss, make sure it's a little bit warm because it's been on the side of their body anyway, so it keeps relatively body temperature. They take that out, they put it on the cart, and they pass the drug test. Now that's no different for the Olympic guys. It's become a little more stringent, not as easy, but drug testing is drug testing. I call them mandatory drug testing, where these officers are tested in a way that they cannot wear body patches and body pouches and put in false urine, and they cannot bypass drug screening or choose to opt out of a drug screening. I know that sounds crazy, but some officers are sick that day and they just choose to opt out, and the force doesn't care. Nobody even looks at them twice.
That's right. They don't even question.
No, they don't. They don't. And I have some police friends that don't like this either, actually. I have some friends of mine that actually smoke weed that are police officers. That again, you get to know people through, I know judges, I know lawyers, I know fucking police officers. It doesn't matter. They all say the same thing. There's a right and a wrong. And it doesn't matter who you are. Nobody is above the law. And if we allow our police officers to just go on suspension and not be held to account as we would be held to account, then this is not a free and democratic society. This is a police state.
That's exactly right. Like, do you think we'd be having the same conversation if they were in their car and they had shot heroin and they were on the nod? Do you think it would be the same? We'd be having the same argument?
I think the public would be 3 times as enraged, and I think there would be demonstrations outside the police force. It's because it's cannabis that everybody thinks it's funny.
And yet, it's the exact same thing.
It is. I truly believe if it was heroin, I believe most Torontarians would have stood up and been at the front of that police force saying, "We want this."
They would have torn that police. They would have torn that police station brick by brick. They wouldn't. They would have flipped the fuck out, man. And Torontonians are crazy like that, man.
Well, these are the realities that we face here in Canada right now. Keith, thank you for coming on this morning. I know you got to run for your kids. I've got a wife that just got home from getting her hair done, and I've got an island to attend to, so I got to actually take a boat and head over to the island and all that fun stuff. Yeah. Keith, I'll
make sure your batteries are charged.
Sorry?
Make sure your batteries are charged.
Yeah, no, I got to do all that. I got to get ready for this and get us onto a boat. But that being said, I want to thank you for coming on the show and giving us a little bit of insight. And my friends, get in touch if you're. I might be busy filming on the island, but our team is always active. So our team is in Cannabis in Canada. There's 13,000 people in the Facebook group. You can get a hold of our administrators and a hold of our team that way. You can go to our website, post a question, check our schedule, see where we're going to be, what we're doing. If you want to get involved. And most importantly, for Torontorians that want to deal with these officers and set precedents so that we can stop having this. This should never happen again with any drug.
No, it probably won't happen like this again.
No.
But there will be something else.
Yeah. Well, yeah, hopefully next time somebody doesn't die. I mean, this time it was just some officers had a bad trip and it's kind of funny. But they had loaded guns, they broke federal laws, and they broke their oath. And to only get a suspension with pay, pending an investigation, when there's already a admission of guilt, you don't even need, you don't even need a trial. You got admission of guilt by the officer at the hospispital.
You have to question this too.
Sorry, go ahead.
And that's right. You have to question this too. Like, how often are they doing this to be that comfortable to eat it at work?
That's
2 days ready to, like, is it that frequent?
That's a good question. I was asking this yesterday. I was like, you know, because again, they say these officers don't even know where they got. We don't know where they got it from. So that we don't even know if they were part of the raid, which would infer a third officer potentially gave it to them. So how many officers are doing this versus the 2 that had, or the 1 that had a bad trip? Because remember, one officer said he was cautiously nauseous, while the other one said he was hallucinating, he was stumbling, falling over, and needed to be checked into the hospital. I wish I had one. I want those brownies. Damn it.
Yeah.
The fuck.
Right.
Anyway, Keith, my friend, you get off, handle your thing with your kids there, and I gotta get off and deal with getting ready for this trip with the family. I am gonna play the police video and take any final questions. I'm gonna jump into the chat. Again, at this point of the show, a lot of people have dropped off. We're at the tail end, but people do rewatch it. They watch it over time. Thanks again to our sponsors: Green Planet Nutrients, Pacific Northwest Garden Supply, Beard Brothers Concentrate, and Corona Health Foundation, Geopods, and Gorilla Tents. Holy cow, that's a lot to remember. And Current Culture. Check out currentculture.com.
Okay.
Anyway, thanks again, Keith, and
have a good one.
Have you again on real soon. Thank you, my friend.
Right on.
All right, so there it is. That is Mr. Keith Carbell. I'll get this right in time. I came on and just I was able to. I didn't expect this show to go this long again this morning, but it is what it is. So my main thing right now is just looking at this sign up thing. Join this campaign. There's only 12 signers on there right now, myself being one of them. We're gonna get this up onto our website somehow. Good work, Brandy, on jumping on top of this, being a Torontorian and looking out for your people. This is what has to happen. This isn't, and I think that Keith put this well. Everybody needs to remember, this isn't in us versus the. This isn't in us versus the police.
Sorry.
This isn't in us versus the police police thing. This is really the police being held to account thing on one issue. And that's because, once again, they got caught and they omitted. So if I got caught and I omitted, I would be in the West detention. So please sign this petition, get involved, use your voice. Or you'll be the next to be locked up in the dawn while your car is impounded because, you know what, they'll swab you. Yeah, well, they're laughing. So, better keep it real. The wife just got back. Your hair looks great, dear.
Thank you.
See, if I don't tell you that, I get a punch in the mouth, so I've learned.
I don't know if you like this one. It's a bit curly, but...
I don't. I just told you it looked nice. Why didn't you straighten it like an ass?
It was a new girl.
Don't blame the new girl. Don't blame the new girl.
This is all her...
I love her hair straight. She knows it, and she puts it curly just to piss me off before my
She
trip.
actually did it all on her own, and because I really liked it, I was like, I could tell her to straighten it, but...
That looks the way it always looks.
Curly's cute.
No, it's not.
Straight's too far. Anyways, get back to your show.
I am on my show. I got a beautiful wife, and I love your hair straight. You look beautiful no matter what, but I'm just saying I love it when it's straight.
She honestly did it. I had nothing to do with it, but I did like it, so I was like, I could, but I was like, nah, you know what, I like
Well, let her know your husband. Let him know your husband's not so fancy with curls and loves it straight. Thanks.
It wasn't brand new.
Love you. Oh, funny days. Anyway, here's the police video as we close this out, guys. I haven't been able to get in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. So now I can get into both YouTube and I can get into, and I notice our YouTube numbers strangely, and I'm happy to see, are fluctuating, at least up and down, indicating that we're reaching a new audience and we're touching base with people. And I know this seems like today's show is targeting at just Canada, but police corruption and police abuse of power goes on all over the world. And if we can't quash it in a free and democratic society, then we're in a lot of trouble in the upcoming 50 years. So here's a video I did back in 2009, showed this yesterday, only playing it because I want to do a dab before I, speaking of dabs, can you want to, I'll see you guys in about 5 minutes, and hopefully I'll have dabs back here, and then I'm going to figure out my boat. Anybody watching that's on the island that's interesting, please PM me, or hit me up at cannabisincanada@gmail.com. As we're trying to put this together, it's not easy for anybody that's done the island trip. It's not like you can drive down the island, back up the island. It's 2 hours each way, so 3 hours, whatever it is. So,
what's the
I love the smoke effect. Ooh. See, I didn't even do a dab. Secondhand smoke's gonna kill me.
That's the name of the highway, right?
The Malhat?
Isn't that the one we have to go up?
I think so, the big long one. Anyway, here's what it is. fundraisers. Oh, sorry, I'm just looking at the YouTube chat, checking this one. I'm going to pop into, this is probably dead as a doorknob by at this point. It's been a long show. We appreciate our morning viewers. Just so you guys know, the Cannabis Canada show will not air 5 days a week at this juncture. We tested this, and I will do I don't know if I'll be able to do a proper show tomorrow, just because we're leaving today to head on this 4-day excursion, possibly a week excursion to the island. That's all I can say at this point. I mean, we do our live feeds, but they're just, as you guys know, not as good. But we'll try to do. They will definitely not be as on time. We'll try to give you guys some notice. But we are looking for feedback. Sunday at 5 o'clock is the main show. Sunday 5 p.m. PST. So that's the main time that we do our show with our guests. To keep this morning show going, I really want to, because statistical data matches 15% comments to views. That's all I care about. Those guys out there with 5 million views and no comments are the guys that are buying views rather than actually producing content that are actually viewers and people. I'm happy to say people here at least are real and are actual people, and that my view counts are what they are, but they're real. And they're growing, which is good. So I appreciate that part too. Back to the policing. Now, we've been talking about the police corruption part. I want to show you guys the flip side of when the green team or the police come to a medical grower's house, who they know is a medical grower, who has approached their police board, who they've already been in the house and inspected before. And this is what they do when they come back. So you need to understand, if you do not know how to protect yourself, it's not that the cops are the bad guys, it's that they're following orders. So don't pick a fight with the police unless you have to, but know how to stand your ground. We'll see you in 5 minutes.
Okay, I'm recording.
Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. Come on, don't give it up for a second. I don't think that's necessary. And you got the top one up top, and the second one here and here.
Yeah, I'm filming it. There's 4 of them. Yeah,
just let me talk to
yeah,
him here.
There's 5 of them.
I gotta find out who their supervisor is. You guys got a supervisor that wants to do the talking?
Wilcox. Mr. Wilcox. These gentlemen coming up here are the inspection team.
Yes.
And they would like to do the inspection, but before they do that, they ask us to come in and make sure everything is safe for them. There's nobody hiding in closets or anything like that.
Exactly, and I believe that this case has been settled in Ontario, that the police can no longer come in for home inspections.
No.
Well, we can to come in and assist them if you allow us to.
I'm not allowed. That's what I'm saying. When it comes to allowing permission.
Come and talk to these gentlemen.
I mean, I don't have a problem standing here with you, or if you guys want to stand even right here, I mean, at the doorway. I mean, I've contacted legal counsel, that's
yes,
why.
we have.
It's nothing against you guys personally. Legal counsel said if they show up there with 3 cop cars, then no, you don't have to let them through your door.
No.
So we can phone Health Canada too.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, Dwayne, do you want to explain what your
So yesterday you were okay with 2 officers coming in the house?
1.
No, I listened to 2, but I see 6.
No,
and
it's only 4 of us.
4, but I see. Sorry, I'm looking at 3 cop cars as well. What bothered me is the gentleman I spoke to. I think was it you that was standing there yesterday?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, it was yourself.
Yeah.
And I did say, I'm feeling bad because, I don't want to seem like the bad guy here, but at the same time, you guys are showing up in force. My neighbors right now, God knows what they think, and I have nothing to hide. When all's said and done, I'm hoping that, we can all get along, but, this has been, how many times have you guys been to my house and in my basement?
Well, this is the first time on the public.
And what is your reason for needing to come in the house for safety, aside from needing to protect them?
Making sure everything is to code.
You're a police officer. So
No. This is by law enforcement.
Okay, so you're coming in to do that. I'm saying, why do you need him?
They're part of our team. They come for our safety.
We only come in for their safety.
So again, against my request to not have them come in for your safety, you're going to go ahead and tell me that I have to allow these officers into my house without a warrant? Because it amounts to a warrantless search.
I'm not going to tell you anything.
I mean, it amounts to a warrantless search. That's what it does.
Yes.
And you're asking me to let officers into the house that are then going to want to do a plant count and everything else for no reason.
No.
Unless we can agree that there's going to be some sort of, not 6 or 7 of these coming in, but rather that your team...
This is the process. One of us would stay out here with you and all the other occupants. 3 of us would go through the house, make sure there's nobody hiding or any weapons.
Yeah,
no.
You don't search for weapons. You guys can get a warrant if you want to search for
get a
weapons.
warrant.
Let me finish.
No, you won't be searching my house.
No.
Okay, let me finish explaining the process. 3 of us go through, we make sure that there's nobody hiding in here. We come out, then the inspection team goes in while we stay outside.
There ain't nobody hiding in here. There ain't nothing for you to have any probable cause to believe that.
I didn't say we did.
Well,
we're
then
coming here
again.
to assist them, and they want us.
And I'm
to
saying
do it.
that my understanding is that there's a legal case that you guys are
That's
not
fine.
allowed in. So I'm saying that if they would like to come in and if they would like to go down and do their jobs, they're welcome
with
to.
them.
I'll stand at the door with you so you know you're safe and that they're safe because I'm with you.
Well, we don't know that.
And we don't have to
know if
worry.
there's anybody else in
Yeah,
the house.
bring me down.
That's why they ask us.
Has
to
there
come.
been any threat to you guys? And you guys have been to my house 5 times.
Yeah.
And there's never been a threat to your officers.
No.
Okay,
So,
Jason,
Calls yours.
what we'll do is we'll just get an entry warrant.
Yes.
Okay, I mean, it could just be so much easier just to let things roll. So we're not here to stop you from what you want to do, just to make sure the electrical and everything's to code.
I just don't understand why all the officers,
This is part of our team, Jason. Okay, it's nothing to do with you. This
Okay,
is
am I going to get this every year,
places.
guys? Well, I mean, I don't mind. Once this is done, am I going to get this crap every year?
Yeah.
Probably not, but this is the first time our section's been involved. We
Oh,
may have
there
these
we go.
issues, but it's never been the public safety team. Okay.
Public safety team.
Yeah.
Warrant.
Okay, so
Different cities called the electrical safety
the searching
team.
for my house.
We're
You're
not
telling me
doing
you're going to
searches.
get. No, you just told me you want to
Yeah.
search for people in my home.
Yes.
And that's my problem that I have. I don't want you
Jason,
going through my
we're
closets.
really okay. We'll just get the entry warrant. We'll do things the proper way. That's the way you prefer.
No, I'm asking you why it is that your team can't just go in. Why you need to get a warrant?
It's city policy. We don't need to get a warrant. You're not allowing us to follow
Because he
city
wants
policy.
to search. He wants to search my house. That's what he just said to me.
It's been
Yesterday I
recorded.
told you I'd take 2 officers and walk down there, but he's saying he wants to search every house in my room. It's like, to get downstairs, we walk straight down. What the hell is the side bedrooms or anything else have to do with
The
anything?
police have ways they follow. They do things too. So it's, obviously you can't accept the way we want to do things. We'll just.
Well, we
do
got it all on
entry
camera, so come on in. Let's go. Bring your guys in. Let's film you guys doing what you're doing. We'll just see what my lawyers have to say after that, and it'll be a lot easier.
Well, we come in, but you guys stay outside.
No.
No, you guys aren't gonna search my
No
house.
fucking way.
That's how we do it. If you don't want that, that's fine.
Nope.
Okay. Thanks for your time, Jason.
Thank you. I'll show that to my lawyer. Thanks, guys. Welcome back, guys. We were just talking about the planning. I literally just hired my daughter for the first time to. Can you guys come? I'm on open mic here.
Sorry.
Thank you. My daughter's just now starting to get the planning. The planning for the trip. God damn it! What do you mean what? Make you pack my suitcase. You fucking keep that shit up. I'm so far behind.
You know what? It's so cold.
Well, you know what? I got to pack fucking 10 pounds of fucking this, 5 pounds of that, 3 pounds. No, I'm just kidding. We actually got our suitcases to pack because we never get fucking loaded up. Typical stoners. Vicky and I are absolute rolling stoners. We somehow managed to show up on time, but 90% of the time we're gunning it to show up on time. And as many know, we're often late. And Kelly, my brother, if you're in the chat or if you're watching, I will be calling you. 90% of the time. Joshua, I will have you on the show, my friend, as well. I've received your messages. I need some of you to understand that on Facebook, and I'm not saying this for any other reason, just for you to hopefully understand that on Facebook is not the best way to get a hold of me. Through Facebook Messenger, I've had... On Facebook, I have shit. I forgot what I was even. Oh, sorry. On Facebook, I have on Messenger just so many messages in the morning that I don't go through there. Where are you going now? Oh yeah, go get Dabs. Sorry. Duh. God damn. This is why I need a fucking studio. So, but that's okay. I'm picking and choosing. I'm being smart for the first time in my life. I'm not just jumping at the first person like I did last time, make that same mistake twice. Making sure we got the right people that we're working with as we navigate these crazy waters of legalization. And as you can see, I will always stay close to Green Planet Nutrients, who is my base sponsor. And honestly, I wish I just had a studio. That would be a relatively simple thing. But for now, people see this as a studio. If I didn't tell you I was in my house, you wouldn't know it. I could pretend that it's not, but I'm not a pretender. I'm not a faker. I'm not a fraud. But I also don't like to fail at a mission. So this is like a 10-year mission to educate about cannabis and turn this into some sort of show. And here we are now with legalization, people that want to invest, people that want to do a show. And I just gotta find my way. And with my family and with my crew, we gotta find our way in these uncharted waters. We're going through these fucking, I keep using the parable, we're all in these different boats, you know, and depending on what boat you're on, some boats are getting capsized, some boats are actually amalgamating with other boats to save their asses, some crews are turning on each other and eating each other up, and other crews are just navigating through the waters, and eventually the storm is going to end. Those will be the ones left standing when this is all over and done. So, yeah, it's one of those things. So I showed the police video, did I? Yeah, I showed the police video. That was stopping the police at the threshold of the doorway. That was the important part on that one. Vicky's sort of in the chat. I'm seeing who else is in the chat. You kidding me? 352 views. Man. Maybe I should hang up my fucking shoes and go home. Fucking go back to growing. It's a fun show to do, but it's interesting how the internet works. But you know, if you guys are any out there are internet gurus that know how to make those numbers go up without buying them or falsifying them, but rather allowing us to, I mean, I've reached I think 8,000 people so far this week. That's my organic reach. That's the people I can actually reach out to. But that's still nowhere near what we should be doing to get a message out to millions. So I'm open to ideas. I'm open to people that want to work with us and help build out the company. And we do have some really good people working with us now. And we're just trying to sort out how that relationship's going to look and work. And some of that advice is going to come from my friends on the island who are my closest advisors in the coalition. You build friendships, and I tell you now that having close friends, close advisors, truth tellers, truth walkers, and most importantly, the most loyalist motherfuckers in the earth. If you can count 5 friends on your hand, you're a good man. You're a lucky man. And I can count about 5 or 10 friends on my fingers, and that's it, that I would follow over a cliff, and that I know have my back under any scenario. But I can't say that about anybody else, so that's important. I don't even know why the fuck I'm touching on that, but it is what it is. Because that was the police, again, and we're here we are talking about police and why we should hold them to account. Look at what they did there. They showed up at a medical patient's house in 2009 or 2010, whenever that was. Showed up at the house just because I sued them successfully. They had already investigated my house. It was safe. My grow room was safe. Landlord was okay with the grow. So they decided to come back with a green team. And once again, within the context of the law, I stood my ground. And I tell you now that I've learned a lot about warrantless searches. And those warrantless searches are serious because it allows them to come right into your house and literally search your shit. Look, not go through your underwear drawer per se, but look for anywhere that a person could be hiding. And there's a lot of really small, short, 4-foot motherfuckers in this world. So cops can come up with justification, reasonable justification for why they were looking in that little cabinet, in that little corner, and that's how they get you. Warrantless search until it's seen by the officer. It's also the rule of thumb that if the police come to your door, walk outside, close the door behind you, or don't go through the doorway and only keep it open a crack, but don't give them open eyesight. There's a law known as open sight. So I'm only saying this to protect some people, because there are people that don't understand the laws around weapons, for instance, knives or whatever, lying on a table, what that could do for an officer if that knife's over a certain limit, or if that officer thinks it's a restricted weapon of any sort, a paintball gun that he might think is a restricted weapon, a replica gun, anything that could just happen to be seen would then give them justification to come in. So the best thing you can do is to say to them, just, you're not welcome in. And in my case, as you can see, in that video, I just simply said, I'll let you in if I can film you, but I'm not going to step outside where your officers are. That's not a comfort zone for me. And I'm certainly not going to let you in without me filming you. And if you want to attack me, then that's why I had a camera person there that was able to film. And that's why I advise anybody that if you know the police are coming to your house, if you think they're coming to your house, even in your car, I mean, honestly, your phone should be up on you got those little things now, and you can turn it this way or turn it this way. So you can turn it towards the window if you get pulled over, because 95% of traffic infractions and searches of the vehicle are actually done illegally. And when you have this videotape footage in your car, usually the officer won't even follow through with the charges, because they realize, oh shit, I'm on camera, so they back off. To advocate you to defend yourself, not from only the police, but from anybody, is to have a video camera and audio. It's the one thing that will protect you and or incriminate you. So it's important. Most importantly, it actually incriminates the police. And 95% of the time, again, these cases do not go to trial. Once officers realize they're on camera, they drop the tickets. They don't want any part of it. Moreover, as long as you're not being a dick. I think that's the biggest problem I have. Is I get calls from people that ask me if I can help them get a lawyer. They're stuck in cells, and I ask for some of the particulars, and they're like, well, this fucking cop, and I told them I have a fucking license and a fucking right to grow, and fuck him, and you know, and they can suck my dick because I have a legal right. And I'm thinking to myself, man, why'd you have to do that? Because now you've added so much more problems to trying to defend any particulars of a case. If you read your Miranda rights, shut the fuck up, get a lawyer, and don't talk. But don't run your mouth either and try to be a tough guy. And don't catch any additional cases that would suggest violence or weapons, because then you only hurt the culture, and most importantly, you hurt your case. That much I can assure you. Packing right now, people are wondering, again, I advocate you to please get into the ACMPR program. I can tell you now, you're going to need insurance. We're going to be able to provide you with insurance. I'm squeezing that deal right now. I'm finalizing that deal. And once I got that deal and I got it in place and I know exactly what it's going to cost, when the time comes that you're able to grow, like Nova Scotia, you're going to be able to grow. Now, medical patients, you're not going to get hit with the insurance so fast because you don't have to tell your landlord. But for everybody else that does, you're going to need to get insurance. When that time comes, we can help you get insurance. We want to make sure that you're getting insured by the people that fucking are the right people to insure you, that have been helping us. And the person I have in mind just happens to have been an expert witness in Allard, helping us defend our gardens. So damn right I want to help them get their business off to a good start in insuring our gardens, because he helped them keep us in here, or helped us to keep them here. Bruce Bud, I want to have you down again, Bruce. I want to have you on the show and talk about the farmers market. In fact, I'm going to cue this up here. I'm killing time basically as I'm waiting on a phone call. So
Let me just get this off here. I think this is the edited version that I have up on my YouTube channel. But I want to keep pushing this as well, because if we just allow them to raid, just like those cops, if we just let it all fade away, it will. Just like they raided our farmers market. If we just let it fade away, it will. Unfortunately, we're not seeing, again, I call the cheerleaders. You're down there every day revving these guys on to sell drugs, sell fucking cannabis, break the law, take all the risk. Then when they get arrested, you all fucking run away and you run to the next project. Klingons, hangarounds. Reminds me of the rock and roll industry. It's gotta stop. You gotta stand for something or you stand for nothing. Now, respect to our soldiers that held down the fort. I'm going to cut this part off here and allow you guys to watch this for yourselves. It's a 6-minute video. I apologize for the distorted audio. All of my audio is distorted from Lyft, so the Lyft video that I'm working on is actually just a music collage. This is one of the interviews, though, that I wanted to get out because I promised that I would get it out. And I think we might have the Voice of the East just on to talk a little bit about what Prince Edward Island is going to do about legalization. Just as we close out the show, fuck, it's hard to close out a show sometimes when you really want to, but at the same time, you know what? It's hard to cover cannabis in the country of Canada in its fullest context without, so anyways, fact. I'm going to switch over to the farmer's market here. 6 minutes. Enjoy it. And guys, this is one of the people that recently just got charged. So unfortunately, he was charged a few days later selling in front of the art gallery. And the problem that I have, and I want this noted to our younger activists and our up-and-coming advocates, if you're going to go out and effect social justice and effect your right to demonstrate and protest, don't pack weapons. Because you go from being any sort of protest or any sort of peaceful pushback, you become the anarchist. And they really changed the definition just that easy. So even though it's not a legal protest that you can sell weed, it is a protest against the federal laws of Canada. But you can't have weapons and you can't have third-party drugs if you're going to actually do this right. So hopefully when the farmers market continues, I know our BC activists, they don't fucking bow down over a couple charges. So as it continues, friends, don't pack weapons. Please, don't pack third-party drugs. No. The cannabis culture doesn't get involved in this part of it. If you want to sell all drug farmers market, then call it that. And don't pack weapons, there's no need for them. See you guys after break. This is Ron from the farmers market and one of the leaders down there. And honestly, when I spoke to Ron, I felt quite an intelligible person. That I really, it sucks that this man now faces charges. And though he likely won't see time, the fact that he faces charges, and I don't know who had the weapons. I don't know if it was at his booth, at somebody else's booth. I don't know the full details or particulars. Bruce Budd, if you'd like to come on the show, let me know. It won't be today. But I would like to have you on the show to update us on all aspects of the farmers market. It's just one more thing that here is progressive in BC, seen nowhere else in the world. And I don't think it should stop just because of a couple of arrests. I think it needs to be controlled better. You can't be packing weapons and third-party drugs and expect this cannabis culture to be treated with respect by our police. They will treat us like anarchists and gangsters. On that note, please listen to what Ron's saying here because he's a good example of what the farmers market truly represents. We'll see you guys in about 5 minutes. All right, welcome back to Cannabis Canada. We're now outside Lyft, where we have really our strongest BC activists that are still holding down the fort with farmers markets, which is what a free and fair market would look like. And this is their own way of protesting, but also having a market. But they're not protesting. My understanding is you're not protesting Lyft. I don't want to speak for you.
we're not protesting Lyft. We support what Lyft is doing. We support what people are doing. We know we're at a complex time in the cannabis issue. As
we are.
Corporatization is coming in, and it's the way things are going to be. So we're just trying to get ready for that, Jason. That's all. We're just really trying to make people more aware of some of the pitfalls of legalization. There'll still be prison for pot. We don't like prison for pot.
I'm with you on that.
We don't want that to happen. There's still going to be the stigmas. You know, people want to still try to make people hide in their basements, it looks like, to smoke. So we have issues with lounges still, finding places for that with Bill C-45. They haven't made those allowances, so the battles are still to come. And you know about battling.
Oh yeah. In fact, John Conroy is addressing Bill C-45 and why recreational users can't grow there, etc. But this to me is what matters, because we had hashtag free and fair before we put the coalition to rest. And the only reason we did was just because we have to now look at what comes next. So it's the government's move, which was the Cannabis Act of Canada. So you've seen you guys out here like this. What I like is no police are even attempting to say don't do this, because they know what's going on inside there. So the same thing is going on in there.
They support, you know, they know that cannabis is helping to make their jobs easier because there's less people in, you know, hard drug addiction situations where they're more out of control. Cannabis smokers, we're relaxed. We're chill. We're chill. Have some chill.
And that's what you can see. We'll get B-roll of the people walking by, but there are hundreds of people walking by, and there are hundreds of people smoking. But this is BC life. I often talk about it in my shows. Like this is BC life. I want to talk a bit about this plant. I came here this morning. It was cold as shit, and I'm amazed. I thought it was fake at first, and then I'm like, okay, it's older. It's got some purpling, but I thought it would be wilted by now. It is cold out here.
I'm trying to protect the roots the best I can here. It's a protest plant. It's had a hard life.
I was going to say I got my new mascot on my show, and I don't know why it's growing really small, but this is a girthy plant to stand out in this temperature all day.
It's actually super kush, so it must be super.
So if anybody is in Vancouver and you're looking at where to go and come down and get involved with either this crew, set up your own tent, do your own thing, get involved with the movement, and whatever your part is in the industry and the movement, get involved, but do more than allow the federal government to continue to pass policy that makes us stand outside and have to sell cannabis versus run our own mom and pop stores. We should be able to open a store. If my brother and I wanted to open a store, we should be able to go open a store and sell it without and pay a reasonable policy fee. If we're going to sell edibles, food safe, that's it. It does not need to be controlled by a monopoly policy that monopolizes Canada.
Yeah, let the people in on the medicine. Just let the mom and pop, the craft cannabis growers, let the small people have a piece of legalization because they need the money. And the economy is not great right now.
That's good smoke. I don't know whose that is. I got to give a shout out to them.
Well, thank you, Jason, for giving us a chance to speak, and hopefully more people are going to be aware of it. So
they will. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to get to B-roll. We're not going to cover too much people here. We definitely wanted to get you on here and make sure we know what's going on. Now, you guys set up every Sunday, if I'm correct. Our gallery. I've seen it actually every day of the week.
Almost every day now. It was 1 day of the month, and then it was 2 days of the month, and then it was every Saturday.
My daughter and I walked by one day, and we're walking down. And I'm like, I just finished doing this joint where I'm smoking a joint and getting a hot dog. I walk down, and here's 4 tables, and I'm seeing like pounds of weed, just like now. I'm just like, this is fucking awesome.
And tourists are seeing it. People from all around the world, we're exposing them to cannabis culture. Like right here, they see cannabis culture, and they take that back to Germany, Brazil, Australia. It's like a seed going back to the country of activism, where they get the idea they might be able to do this in Germany, you know. And then the laws come down.
All eyes are on us, so you're doing it at the right time. Again, I always say on my show, hats off to our frontline people, because it is risky to do this. It is. Risky,
friends get arrested, you know, but
you have to break laws in order to change laws. We know this.
Unjust laws are meant to be broken.
They're meant to be broken. It's our civil duty. Actually, if you look at patriotism, and I often talk about this because constitutionally speaking, it is our duty to oppose a law, and that's why the coalition really fought free and fair, keeping these plants, keeping the genetics. Even now with the government, however this plays out, the people, as you can see, are going to push back against any sort of forced pricing scheme brought on by the federal government. The federal government and the provincial government needs to stand down and kind of allow the market to dictate itself. On that note,
if they don't, they're not going to sell it cheap enough to wipe out that black market. It'll persist. So
exactly. You're right. On that note, brother, thank you and for all you guys are doing out here.
Appreciate it.
And stay tuned for more from Cannabis in Canada. We will get some B-roll here for more of the market, because it goes all the way down the block here. Some people don't want to be on film, so we certainly don't want to film them if they don't want to be on there. But we want to get their message out, because if we do not recognize who's taking the real risk, we forgot how we got here. See, I've been doing this 20 years to get here, so don't forget how we got here, my friends. Yeah. On that note, stay tuned for more lift coverage and out front coverage from Cannabis in Canada. Cheers. Welcome back, guys. Some shitty ass Gunkin' Panda fucking shatter. Burns your throat. I'm sorry, but I have to say it. I don't know if it's because this is just their shitty stuff they dumped off at Can Do, but I am very picky about shatters, and yeah, I will get into certain things, and yeah, to each their own. But if that shit's getting out to patients, I mean, you guys can take a look at this and see whether that's clear to you or not. I mean, the cloudiness, the smokiness. Will I end up smoking anyway? I fucking don't know. And it's melting in my fingers, which shatter shouldn't do, but whatever. It is what it is. It's not live resin. I just want people to know, you know, Beard Brothers is where it's at. We want to make sure you have the best medicine possible. If you're going to go with shatters, make sure you go with the shatter crew that represents you and represents truth, and doesn't hand down inferior products, you know, to be handed down to medical patients at an inflated cost. I think that that's cheap, shady, and unfortunate. But then again, certain people shouldn't take a shot at Mr. Wilcox, because I'm Irish and I take my time when I choose to fucking respond. Anyway. That being said, we have now on the farmers market. I didn't cover a lot on the farmers market. I'm going to see what I can pull up in news. I don't know if the voice of the East is going to come on. I'm just kind of communicating with him now on the sideline. No, I'll go pack. You'll be on the shows on the island. We need to go. I'm planning, and I'm finishing out this show, but I'm planning at the same time. See if our webmaster around.
There is a feeling in your throat, though.
It's a burning in the feeling. Fuck. Look, man. If you smoke fucking shatter, it should not burn the back of your throat. You know what that is? That's just people going cheap on the butane, because they fucking don't give a shit about the person who's using it in the end. And that's wrong. Stop doing it. I'm not going to be a brand basher, but I will be a protector of the patients. And if you're serving shit that's going to fucking make them sick, I'll call your fucking brand out. You can bet I'll smash it in the motherfucking ground. I don't give a fuck. Don't fucking get patients sick, and don't serve inferior products and make them cough their fucking head off, burn their lungs, and want to puke. Because you're too fucking cheap to buy the extra, cleaner butane. That's why we need standards, regulations that meet the FDA, so that fucking patients can dab in safety.
100%. And our shit's lab tested all the time.
No, fucking for real. The Beard Brothers test their shit. They lab test their shit. They make sure their parts per million meet FDA regulations as best they can. But my God, when you're not even making an attempt and you want to fucking sell that to sick and dying patients, it's wrong. That's why there's standards, why we need reasonable policy. We don't need a blanket ban. But I can tell you now, we do need to keep people safe, because if people start ending up with fucked up lungs, or fucked up anything as a result of bad extractors, that's only going to serve to justify the government's position on banning butane. God damn it, do it right or get the fuck out of the business.
Oh, I'm not dabbing anymore of that.
I wouldn't dab anymore. I'm not. I'm going back to dabbing fucking Reclaim.
I'd rather dab Reclaim.
Fuck. You know, when you're live, it's like you fucking, you ask people like, fucking yes or no. You fucking ying out. I don't got time to fucking play fucking messages on my computer. It's too fucking hard. To my friends on YouTube, it has been a long show, and once again, probably because there will not be a show tomorrow morning that you'll be able to tune into. The Sunday show will be off the hook. It may even be filmed from the island. I'm going to bring in the Beast of the East to discuss cannabis legalization in Nova Scotia, because this is where 4 plants are permitted. At least unless they changed it again. But let me see if I can pull him on here. Put my earpiece in. Just bear with me for a second here, guys, as I practice pretending that I know what I'm doing. Now, if you guys are looking for him, you guys can Google Beast of the East, and you'll see a logo of Cannabis in Canada. Anybody else using our logo or defaming Cannabis in Canada, please let us know so we can adequately sue them. What am I hearing? Through my headphones, I'm hearing something. Abuse of force. This is Facebook. Okay, that's why. All right. So once again, guys, I'm going to touch on this just before I bring on the voice.
We are here with Justin from Green Planet Nutrients. So Justin, can you tell me a little bit about your products, what we're doing here?
Yeah, we're just we're proud to be here with the Maximum Yield Trade Show in Los Angeles, 2015, and really happy to be represented by Left Coast Wholesale, who's our distributor in California. And we're really happy to introduce a lot of the customers to our products. If they don't currently know who we are, Massive. They know us by our names, Mega Wash, Whitewash, and Freak Wash, which are the ultimate frequencies. And we've also got Massive, which is our flagship flower stimulator. And we've got a really wide range of products, from base nutrients. We're currently about to introduce our 3-part, which is really, really exciting. We've got a Grow Bloomer Micro, which is second to none. So there's a lot of stuff happening at Green Planet, and it's an honor to have Left Coast being our distributor down here.
Excellent. And you say not a lot of people know about you. Where are you guys located?
Yeah, situated? So we're based in British Columbia. Okay. Most people have heard of us. We've been in the industry for over 22 years. But if you haven't heard of Green Planet, you already obviously know the names like Massive, like Mega Wash, all these different products, Medi1. So yeah, it's exciting to be part of here.
And what's so exciting about these?
Back to this camera. Holy cow. And I did not plan to go this long today. It's a good thing I planned to head over to Victoria later. I'm going to bring on the Voice of the East here and let him update us. The Beast of the East. Beast of the East. How you doing, my friend? Good, good. Now, my friends, you guys can hear, let me just make sure that I pull you in properly and people can hear at least your audio. So I don't have an audio feedback, so I have my earpiece in, but I'm pretty sure that they can hear you now.
Okay, check 1, check 2.
Yeah, you look like you're coming through fine. Yeah, lots of hearts, lots of love, guys, on Facebook, please. That way I know that the sound's coming through okay, and the Beast of the East can let his shit loose and let us know what's going on, because he's got some stuff on Nova Scotia, which I'm excited about, because I believe they can grow 4 plants, and he's got some other stuff to talk about. So we're going to close the show out on doing that. Sorry, I'm just opening this up here. One sec here, Beast. I just got to... Again, we're calling him Beast of the East, guys, but you will get to know him. So if you need a catalyst, if you need a voice, and you live on the East Coast, you know, PEI, Newfoundland, friggin' Nova Scotia, wherever, if you need a voice, a catalyst that can help reach across this nation and get you accurate information, you can contact the Beast of the East. He has his own webpage or his own Facebook page now, so you can contact him for these purposes only. You know, so understand that we're doing all we can. I also have an article to pull up for you as well, so go ahead.
Oh, sorry for that. No, someone entered my ring there.
Oh. Now, I know some people are wondering, well, Beast of the East, why isn't he showing his face? And I told you guys, he's on the East. We're not on the West Coast, not in Toronto. He's on the East Coast. So when you're on the East Coast and you live in a small town, it's not always the smartest thing to come right out and say you're now going to be the voice, because you can become not only the target, but you can become the catalyst. And you know, and not all cities and towns, as we learned in the privacy case, are so acceptant of cannabis. So until such time as we legalize and this country can freely talk about cannabis openly and honestly, then we're going to keep doing this. The free market.
Slowly and surely, we are managing to change the stigma of it, but it takes everyone talking about it. It takes everyone to be able to admit that they were wrong, that they were tricked, that this should have never ever been made illegal.
Yes. Well, this is it. Now you're on the East Coast. I don't want to get into where, what, when. What I care about is that you're reporting for the East Coast. Now Nova Scotia is the only province to come out and say we're going to allow 4 plants per home. As well, they've said they're going to sell out of liquor stores just like other provinces. But most importantly, they're not stepping around the Cannabis Act of Canada. Is that accurate? Because I haven't. You sent me the report, but I haven't had a chance to read it yet.
Yes, it is accurate. Hats off to the Nova Scotia provincial government for sure for allowing and actually following along with the federal task force findings that yes, indeed, they should be allowed to grow at least 4 plants. It's nice to see that the provincial government has that ready as soon as cannabis becomes legal in July. Like you said yourself, it's no surprise that the liquor corporations are going to be running most of the retail and distribution parts of cannabis. I'm just quickly actually reading up on this myself as well. Cannabis products will not be visible to people in the rest of the store. Individuals under 19 years of age are not permitted in these areas. So anyone under 19 are not actually permitted in areas where cannabis is being sold. So that's actually quite interesting.
Correct.
The distribution and sale of cannabis will be through Nova Scotia liquor corporations, both online and existing stores. Corporate and social responsibility will be a core value that guides the NSLC sales cannabis. NSLC will comply with federal requirements with regards to how cannabis is sold and advertised. Staff will be trained to help customers make informed, responsible choices. So I'm really interested in what kind of training they're going to receive for brand new employees who are just coming into this type of market, who have absolutely no experience, especially when there's so much that's not known about the cannabis plant, well, scientifically speaking, I guess. So it's going to be interesting to see how that's going to play out. Staff will be trained to help customers make informed, responsible choices. The area where cannabis is sold will be separate from the rest of the store. Cannabis products will not be visible to people in the rest of the store and individuals under 19 years of age. So, to me personally, I think that's a good choice, because to me that kind of sounds like, all right, well then that means we need to have a separate place for cannabis. So let's not have it near alcohol. You know what I mean? Because as far as I'm aware, if parents go into an alcohol or a liquor store, and let's say you go with your teenager and he's 18 or maybe 17, or as long as he's with family, he's allowed to enter those stores. So again, I guess there might be some kind of ID process maybe to get into where cannabis is being sold. Most liquor places anyway here on the East Coast, you don't actually get ID until you actually go to make the purchase. So it's going to be interesting to see if they're going to have security or bodyguards at the door waiting. The legal age again is going to be 19 in Nova Scotia, in line with every other province here on the East Coast. As far as I'm aware, they're the only actual province on the East Coast to actually talk about having home growing. So again, hats off to the provincial government for that.
Beast of the East, just so you know, I'm actually, as you're reading this off, and I want you to keep going, my friend, but I'm pulling it up here and I'm actually highlighting right now. People can see. I was giving lots of hearts there, as I am right now, hearts and thumbs up, as everybody should be. The fact that Nova Scotia is allowing 4 plants for home. If you can't see what's going on in this country, then my God, open your eyes. Just because the federal government says so doesn't mean every provincial territory has to do so. And here we got a province that's finally allowing it. So please continue, my friend. I'm just letting you know I'm scrolling through their actual legalization model through here now for our viewers to see. Please continue.
Perfect. Let's keep in mind though, like you were saying, Jason, I believe there was 5,000 MMAR holders in Nova Scotia.
And there was 8,000 under the MMAR one before of now. I mean, now there's probably a ton more, but there was 8,000, second largest only to BC per capita. So absolutely yes.
So again, if anyone's good at picking up patterns and noticing that kind of stuff, well then, right away, I take notice that it seems that every province that had a big majority of MMAR patients actually have the floor plant count included in their in the legislation for legalization for the provincial government. So that kind of mind boggles me, because let's not forget the federal task force recommended all Canadians have the right to grow floor plants.
Not only that, but the Cannabis Act of Canada also passed that legislation, barring royal assent, making it formal law. But it's been through all 3 readings, and they have kept 4 plants per home. So just so people understand, that arose from the legalization task force, because the government said they were going to do whatever the task force suggested. So just to touch on that, that's how we got to the 4 plants per home. And what Manitoba did was they said, we're not going to allow that 4 plants per home, and that's our choice as a territory. So again, hats off to Nova Scotia. Now, I just want to touch on something here, Beast, because there's something that sticks out to me right away, and I have it highlighted here for our viewers to look at. 9 locations selling cannabis beginning July 2018 are Amherst, 26 South Adrian Street, Dartmouth, 650 Portland Street, Halifax, 5540 Clyde Street, Halifax, 3601 Josephs and Howe Drive, Lower Saxville. I might be saying all this wrong, I apologize, but 752. So they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. They have 9 locations already bought, paid for, and stocked, ready to supply the province of Nova Scotia under the issue of distribution and retail. Now let's see who has distribution and retail. Well, the distribution sales of cannabis will be through the Nova Scotia Liquor Corporation, both online and in existing NSLC stores. So that explains why they have 9 stores already in place, because their liquor stores are just going to stick cannabis in. I can't remember who signed the big deal for Nova Scotia. Do you know who signed the big deal by chance, Beast?
I'm just currently reading down through another document that I have here, trying to see.
I know they signed with somebody. I just can't remember who.
I would imagine it will probably be Cannabis Growth, maybe, possibly, because it seems that they have kind of taken over a bit of the East Coast tremendously. There was a recent document released there a couple months ago. I think it was a $50 million deal signed with the province of Newfoundland for a growing facility or some kind of operating facility for cannabis. So there's big things happening definitely on the monopoly side for sure.
Here's a question.
Yes.
Here's a question I got for you, my friend. Now they're saying that in Nova Scotia, keeping it out of the hands of children is their primary concern. Keeping impaired drivers off the road, going back to those cops driving high and with their guns. Anyway, keeping impaired drivers off the road is their 2 priorities. Then keeping profits out of the hands of organized crime. My only concern is, now that they've allowed 4 plants for home, Nova Scotia won't face this. My biggest concern has always been the price war between the licensed producers that have all this oversight forced on them by the federal government and the 4 plant per home people that are going to, every family member or every family has a member that grows, or everybody knows their neighborhood grower. So this scenario is going to, in effect, force a price war. People are not going to just accept that, hey, because licensed producers have the right to sell it, I'm just going to give up my trade. Some guys have been doing this their whole lives. So what is your take on that, back east? Because it says it's going to keeping the profits out of the hands of organized crime, and I'm thinking you're helping organized crime by making this price war, this gas war. It's like it's forcing an organized crime scenario, because people in the underground, they have to drop their prices. Street prices will drop. Everybody's going to benefit for patients, but LPs can't drop the prices so easy. It's a little bit harder for them to drop prices. They have too much oversight, too much regulation, and too much packaging and supply oversight that is simply, they have to charge a base number. So this is, and again, they have to charge tax. So I'm only saying this because I'm interested in getting what your feel is on the East Coast. Like, what is it? Because I don't hear any voices from the East Coast. Debbie Schwartz Griffin, you know I love you, sister. You know, holding it down, the Moms for Marijuana. This is the only group that I know that has been holding it down, and really holding it down for the East Coast. But going all the way down, New Brunswick, PEI, Newfoundland, so forth, we don't get the same voice. But I know you're there, and I know you use cannabis, and I know you feel you need to be secretive. And this is where we're trying to build a catalyst so that in July, as you see, we are going to legalize, as I was just showing in the paper, as the Beast of the East was reporting, setting it straightforward. What's going on? Now, thank God, I hope that PEI, New Brunswick, and Newfoundland all allow 4 plants per home and show that the federal government does follow what it says it's going to do and listens to the legalization task force and actually follows its own legislation. And on that note, Mr. Conroy has also noted that Manitoba is not within their powers to say we're going to ban all recreational users from growing 4 plants. They can't do that. It's not within their provincial territorial powers, and they're infringing once again on the issue of liberty for the end cannabis user, for the average civilian. So this is no longer a medical thing. This is a Canadian people's thing versus the federal government's Cannabis Act of Canada legalization policy. Beast?
Sense that, like, for people who have the right to grow 4 plants, when they start growing their own and they grow 4 plants, they're going to quickly realize they don't need to go to the store to purchase this stuff, and more than likely they're going to get better at growing, and then they're going to be growing better than what they're getting at the store, because none of these big organizations can be really verified. You know what I mean? Like, there's already lots of talks about pesticides and all this stuff is being sprayed on LP produced cannabis and so forth. So again, like, it's going to come down to the people, and if the people are going to stand up. And it's like I talked about before with you. It took someone like you, a dying sick man, dying, to stand up for what was right. And now everyone is slowly but surely starting to pick up and understanding this even better on what's actually taking place in front of us. Here on the East Coast, it is way different from what it is out there in Vancouver and out on the West. But again, time tells all truths, and it takes people to stand up and do the right thing, because it's about being on the right side of the history at the end of the day.
It does. You know, that's a good thing, Beast, because you know what? John Conroy in the documentary, and people will see this when we release the documentary, I asked him a pointed question: why did you take a chance on me, Jason Wilcox, the patient? The guy that you know can't pay you $1 million even if this thing goes. He said it was because it was the right thing to do. And when I first met John, I looked at him as Santa Claus, because he was a guy that, he taught me the definition of being a social justice activist or a warrior. It's not about cannabis, it's not about any one particular thing, it's about the right thing for society as a whole. And it made me a better man for it. And I tell you, John Conroy is like a hero to me. He's now an international consultant. So for my friends that are watching overseas that are interested in getting the lawyer that really is spearheaded Allard, and I just can't say enough about the man. Again, social.
No, of course not. He stood up for what was right, and at the end of the day, anyone who's a medical user knows what's right.
Yeah.
They know what they're dealing with. They know what helps them in their symptoms. If it's because they had broken bones, or if they have a disease, or whatever medical condition. People who actually go out and experiment with it themselves, they quickly learn that they are finding relief, or it's helping them and it's making them better. So again, there's no scientific evidence, because there was no scientific studies. But when you have millions of people all around the world, not even in our own country, but all around the world, who are saying that they're finding relief, that they're finding that this is helpful. The time to have a study is now.
Yes.
Not next week, not next month, not next year. It's right now, right? And as far as I'm sure, everyone has the right to try. You know what I mean? And that's something that I think any Commonwealth country in this day of age definitely should have the right for their civilians. And everyone does have the right, because if you know what I mean, it's beyond me. Like, what you're telling them is, I'm sorry, we don't have anything for you, so go home and deal with it. Like, that's not right.
Or take our pharmaceuticals that the lobbyists have paid us to make sure you take. I'm sorry, but this has been my pet peeve, I guess, is because of my illness for 25 years, I've seen how they test drugs in this country, and they test them on people, and they don't, they're not always honest about what they're doing. And pharmaceuticals are so deadly, they can be so destructive that the government finally forced them to put on their commercials what really happens when you start this drug. It doesn't just get rid of your migraine. It could cause this, and then you're like, holy shit, why would I take that? Now I tell you, you don't see those commercials for cannabis. All you see is save the kids, but then you see from what? Save the kids, well, from what? Stats? What? Science? Where? All I see is fucking, my daughter can grow kick-ass fucking weed if she wants to, because she's been taught a trade. She doesn't even smoke it. She just recognizes that there's a booming business and an opportunity to make her way into the business, and that's the long and short of it. But when you're talking about a plant, you're talking about herbology. Why we're talking toxicology and pharmacology is beyond the scope of my understanding. Now, doctors can experiment, researchers do what you want, because we know the lock and cure is in here. There's a lot to be said about the cannabinoids. But to try and ban this plant from the people, and that's why I love Nova Scotia, because I know those fuckers stand up and they hold their ground. There's just different provinces I've had a chance to visit, and I love the sturdiness and the strength. Like Chris Enns, for instance, he was raided. He stood his ground. He didn't fucking take the plea. He walked in, he walked right up, and he did what he needed to do to protect himself. And he was running a lounge and dispensary. They were holding it down, trying to hold Nova Scotia for themselves, which was the right thing to do. And as we've seen them arrest dispensary after dispensary, Mr. Aaron Bott, that happened out in Alberta, you know, his charges were dropped because he went all the way to trial. People that listen, they don't want to throw us in jail, they want to shut us down. Traditional supply and distribution routes shut them down so we can open up the new ones for these big 88 companies. Not to mention, we're the footprint that the whole world's watching, because these 88 companies are now setting up all around the world and are already supplying 6 other countries, as noted here. So, Beast of the East, who's going to continue to be reporting again on regular shows, at least 2-3 times a week. And if there's anything breaking in the East Coast, what we need is for PEI, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, come together so that we have a strong voice in the East. And if you need a catalyst, if you need somebody that's willing to have the kahunas to get up there and actually speak for you, then get a hold of us. Lord knows I'm the one that put the restraining order on the government. I ain't afraid to say a damn thing. I stand by my conviction. I stand by my truths. And my entire team stands by our conviction and our truths. Because we know we're full of transparency. We know we're full of truth. And most importantly, it's conviction. If we tell you we're going to start on a mission, we're going to finish it. Yesterday, we just debated starting on these 2 officers, and today there's a petition to shut them down and have them fired, as it should be. I would use the analogy, if I just found out that some mother beat the shit out of her child and lit him on fire down the street for me, I would be part of that protest and that petition as well. I can't get into all the different social justice things that we at Cannabis in Canada would look at as being non-cannabis, but still our issue to report on, in our responsibility to report on and do what's right by the nation of Canada. Bringing the Beast of the East on, that allows us to show you that we got from ocean to ocean coverage of what's going on in this country. And I'm hoping that we get Mr. Justin Loizo's back. He's a little bit under the weather, but I'm hoping to get him back for our Toronto reporter, and we build this out as it should have been all along, without the influence of our American friends that like to come in and steal intellectual property that they can never come up with, because they're simply replicators. They're not originators. Now, Voice of the East, you got some amazing stuff going on back there as well that just people don't know about. This is what bothers me about legalization. We still feel the need to be secret. And I get that, and I'm with you guys. So believe me, if you want to work with Cannabis Canada, work under a ghost handle, work under a ghost name, a user handler, whatever, we can help hide you. until you're ready to come out and talk as who you are. Or you can remain a ghostwriter. But we need a voice. Failure to use your voice, then you deserve what you get. We deserve what we get if we collectively fail to use our voices. Such as holding these officers to account, such as Allard, such as R.V. Smith, onwards and onwards and onwards. We're constantly in a battle to keep social justice and societal law in check. The Charter of Rights and Freedoms, you guys might not know your history on this, but it was written to protect us from large monopolies and large corporations, as you see, taking over this country. That's how we protected ourselves in Allard. That's how we'll protect ourselves from the Cannabis Act of Canada. Science and biology will destroy this driving test. And I believe that they'll be sued again if they don't drop the test sooner. We'll see what happens first. Thank you, Justin. Please share it around. Justin, Sav, guys that are looking to start working with us a little closer with CNC, please start sharing this shit around, because this matters, especially this particular one, because this is something we're picking up as a collective. There's no one group, one organization that's behind this. There's just a body of people that are saying, you know what, enough's enough with police brutality and police thinking that they're above the law. We need to hold them to account just like they hold us to account, just like we hold each other to account.
We're in this all together. What I want to see, I want to see everyone who's out on the East Coast. I want to see everyone who's out here, whatever province you are, from Nova Scotia, PEI, Newfoundland, whatever have it. Go to your medical friends. Go to your groups. Go to your compassion clubs. Tell them about cannabis in Canada. Cannabis in Canada. Tell them what we represent and what we are, and what we have done, and what has been achieved so far, and what we're pushing for. We're pushing the right message, and that's what it takes. It takes everyone to start listening to the right message and picking up, and we all stand together. And power's in numbers. Power's always been in numbers, and change happens when we all stand up together. And we let our MHAs know. We let our politicians know, hey, this ain't right. Just look, this is helping my friend, or hey, how come this province here has a right to grow, but we don't have a right to grow? And the federal task force even said that all Canadians have the right to grow, but it's not included in the legalization platform. What's going on here? It takes us all to start standing up and start asking those questions.
Well, actually, this is part that we want to be clear on, is that it is in the legalization task force. Oh, sorry, it is in the legalization platform. That's the thing we have to remember. It started with Allard. Then the legalization task force was formed, in which most of our expert witnesses in Allard on our side was part of that committee. So what came out of that committee was the suggestion for 4 plants per home. That's it, not per person, per home. That was their suggestion. The government of Canada said, we'll definitely uphold anything that they suggest. So because of Allard, because patients can grow, they allowed the 4 plants. So up until I heard that Manitoba said, we're not going to allow recreational users, it looked like there's an opt-out clause. So I spoke with Mr. Conroy at Lyft. He said, is there an opt-out clause or something I missed? How does Manitoba step around federal legislation that says 4 plants per home? I can see how insurance has to be brought in. I can see how maybe permits need to be brought in. But I can't see how you can just step around federal legislation. Again, the Cannabis Act of Canada has been read 3 times. It's been all through all 3 readings, the House and the Senate, and is now barring royal assent. So once we get royal assent, it's law. And we've got lawyers ready to file their paperwork as soon as it becomes law, because there's already arbitrary and unconstitutional language that is, I'm not going to get into it any further, that is in the Cannabis Act of Canada and is open for charge. In the meantime,
this goes back to the same question. Sorry to cut you off there.
No,
This goes back to the same question that I asked you last show, which was, when cannabis becomes legal, does that mean cannabis can now return to nature? Can it grow freely? You know what I mean? Like, can it go back to nature? Is it allowed to grow in nature?
Well, this,
you know what I mean? Or is it right? That's another question. I think there's a really good question that kind of boggles your mind when you think about it.
That's why I sit with this. That's why I sit with. Sorry, I sit with a plant here on every show. I want people to understand, and believe me, if it was growing a lot bigger, I used to sit with my trees beside me. Whatever. I want people to understand that if you do not stand up now and show what we demonstrated in a $1.2 million trial and error, that there's no harm to growing this plant, using this plant, being around this plant. There's no danger for the fucking kids. The danger is fentanyl in the street, alcohol in the fridge, and pills in the cupboard, not that motherfucking plant. Worst case scenario, you're gonna go to sleep. And that fucking retard that put the dog on the air, you get your dog wired on a fucking cookie, then you put him on the air like it's funny because the dog's staggering around. What the fuck you think will happen? That was my issue with the officer. Now, it's funny if your dog is stupid enough to eat one of your cookies off your plate because they think they're smart and then they get high. Well, that's funny shit. Dog did it to himself. But don't fucking film your dogs. Don't get them high and then film them and try and say, this is what everybody looks like when they're high. No, that's a dog has 4 times or 5 times the impact of the endocannabinoid system. They have an ECS like we do. So it hits them 5 times fucking harder than it hits us. I just needed to say that because I don't like seeing misinformation. Cannabis can cure cancer in dogs, help hip dysplasia, help 101 different things in dogs. But you do not need to OD your dog and then put them on the internet and make it look like it's a fucking horrible, horrible thing for us animal lovers. Because I've treated my dog with cannabis numerous times. Numerous times. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's the right thing to do, but overdosing your dog is not right. It's just like overdosing your friend and thinking it's fucking funny. Sorry, Beast of These. I had to get that off my chest.
Just thinking about that whole situation. What we were just speaking about that time, like how ignorant of the person. Like obviously, like not only did they not care about their animal, but again, you gotta keep in mind. Just look at the body size of that animal. Obviously, something
that's a good point.
Like
Thank
a cookie. Obviously, a cookie, a full cookie to something that's so small. However big the dog is, if it's a German Shepherd or if it's a Chihuahua, you know what I mean? Like, their body size is also going to play a factor in that. It's just pure ignorance. And I think one of the truest things I've ever heard was it takes all kinds of people to make this world turn.
It does.
I think that's one of the truest things I've ever heard.
Well, the one thing I've learned in my 20 years of activism is that you can choose to allow shit like that to go unchecked, or you can be the guy that calls them out. And you know what? I've went across this country. I've been threatened numerous times, and I've had my share of scuffles over me just saying the truth. But you know what? It's the truth. You want to fucking get your dog high and put him on the air? You know, I wish I had your username. I'd call you out for doing it. You're a fucking idiot. You know, and you make us all look bad. Because there are people out there considering experimenting with cannabis to help save their kids from seizures and various other things. And fuckheads like you putting a drunk dog because you over-intoxicated your dog on the internet. How the fuck does that help the culture? Obviously you use cannabis or the dog wouldn't have gotten it in the first place. So your 5 minutes of fame costed the culture 10 fucking years of work. Beast?
Exactly. No, you're hitting right on the head there. It's pure ignorance, and there's no need of it. It is actually sad just to think about the effect of a simple video like that, with the message that it portrays to the people, especially the people who have who are actually thinking about getting involved in this, especially with legalization coming about. It's just more scare tactics, is the way I look at it.
That's how I've seen it, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Because someone like myself or you or anyone else part of our crew would. We obviously see we're always playing this three-dimensional chess game. Like everything that we see, we think about it in 3,000 different ways. You know what? And that's what it takes. It takes people to actually think about what's happening in front of us, and that's why someone like you took it to court and you won it, right? Because you knew it was wrong.
Well,
right? And
I knew it was wrong, but I understand it. The documentary will show this. But when I went to John Conroy in 2012. When the MMPR first came out and said it was proposed, they said they were going to eliminate home growing, citing fire, mold, and organized crime. That was all I cared about. The rest of it I seen. There was these big corporations. That kind of shit you can't stop. That's the government's domain for legislation and regulation. But when it came to eliminating plants and citing danger, that need to be proved. That's what we fought. So we argued Section 7 and Section 1 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms in Allard. Fuck, where was I going with that? Repeat what you said there, because I did dab. I'm totally lost my track.
Man, you're asking me something impossible now.
Okay.
I was just reading there. Yeah. No, of course. Section 7 and Section 1 of the Charter.
I'm sorry, man. That dab almost killed me. Yeah, stabs we don't usually do. We have to resort to. Honestly, dabs that probably shouldn't be served to people, but anyway, enough said. I don't want to jump on those people. But anyway, yeah, that was an important part too, though. But understand that in Allard, that their plan was to eliminate home growing. That failed. So the legalization task force, that fucked them up because it was our experts from the trial that were on that task force, some of them. That led to the 4 plants in the Cannabis Act. It never got removed. lenses to today. So when I went to John Conroy in 2012 and I said, look at fire, mold, and organized crime, we can't find Stats Canada. Nobody seems to have any statistics on these claims. And these claims are against the 36,000 medical growers at the time. Out of 41,000 people, 36,000 chose to grow for themselves or have somebody grow for them. So that was a huge statistical factor. So in Allard, it was fundamentally the issue of Section 7, right to liberty. Section 1, your right to reasonably access your liberty. I know that sounds funny, but you have a right to liberty doesn't mean you have a right to, for instance, you have a right to be medically treated with opium. Doesn't mean you have a right to grow it for yourself personally. This is what I mean by reasonable access. So, in Allard, we proved that 38,000 patients were supplying themselves with a plant. And we're doing so perfectly fine and medically. What we also proved in Allard was that there was no fire, there was no mold, there was no gangsters. Kurt Tusaw put it best about mold. What do you do when you find a moldy fucking banana or a moldy piece of bread? Do you fucking mow it down? Or do you throw it in the garbage? And, you know, the officer had to answer the correct question. It was you throw it in the garbage. You're not going to fucking eat it. So Mr. Tusaw asked him what would be the difference. And it was a good question. You know, even now, it's like you ask yourself, logic has to dictate reason. So the whole mold argument went out the window for the government of Canada on that note alone. So again, drawing contrasts. And then when the judge, through our evidence, learned that addiction was equal to that of caffeine, well, then it became an issue of, well, what? Are we going to remove all wake-up drinks, all pop, everything with caffeine that's in the stores that's getting our kids wired daily? Are we going to now remove that? Because that's the addiction we're talking about when we're talking about addiction to caffeine or to cannabis. There is addiction, but there's addiction to coffee too. There's addiction to food. There's addiction to all kinds of shit. Question is it reasonably right to govern it like a gun and suggest that its addiction is something like fentanyl or heroin or coke? The drugs that are really killing our kids and the ones that we really need to be worried about versus the fucking plant that can actually help them get off those drugs. I'm sorry, Beast, I'm kind of rambling here. I'm waiting on the wife.
Should we remove poison ivy bushes and thorn bushes from nature? Because hunters may accidentally step into one. You know what I mean? Like that's,
I never thought of it that way.
Same lines of what we're talking about here. Right? Like, I mean, that's pretty much the same thing that we're looking at here, right? Like, is it time to start removing everything that possibly may cause some form of discomfort from society? Should we remove it from Earth altogether and destroy it? You know what I mean? Like, obviously, if there's a thorn bush there, you ain't gonna walk into it if you see it. You know what I mean? Same thing in the mold. Like Mr. Conroy explained in court. Like, if if a banana's moldy, are you going to eat it?
Yeah. Well,
right. Like, if you do, well, then all power to you. But like, you probably should.
And then,
you know what I mean?
And then
right?
here's another one for everybody to understand, that the inherent harms. So you gotta remember, the government was saying, well, there's so much danger to cannabis. You know, there's inherent harms. You know, they could have a fire. They could fucking do this. They could do that. So, you know, I loved what the judge himself said. It didn't take us to say it. The judge himself simply said, you know, there's inherent harms when you cross the street. You could get hit by a car. There's inherent harms when you're sleeping in your bed. Your building could get hit by a plane. There's inherent harms when you light a barbecue if you don't know how to light it right. Now we're getting into realistic harms, because people do die every year from lighting their barbecue wrong and blowing themselves up. But we still sell barbecues, and there's no age limit on who can buy a barbecue. So that being said, we then look at realistically, what other dangers are there? Chainsaws. Well, you can be a kid and go buy a chainsaw right now. Now, how many kids read directions? Most just pump the gas in, fire the fucker up, and start cutting like I would when I was a young man. Now, if you don't know that cutting overhead, the chainsaw will kick back and cut you into your fucking forehead and kill you. It's now a lethal weapon that if you're not taught how to use right, can kill you. So we can talk about inherent harms, but I like the judge's point of view. There is inherent harms in everything. Unless you can show me an inherent harm that is detrimental to these patients, this end user of cannabis, then I don't see it. And I think this is important for us to understand what went down in Allard when I say they proved no danger in, again, using, being around, holding, possessing, or growing cannabis. There's no danger. The police and the fire department will continue to argue that there is, but in the federal laws of Canada, they failed to prove a goddamn thing. Am I saying we're all fucking a bunch of preachers and angels? Hell no. I know there's bad apples in every bunch. I'm just saying it's like cars. There's bad drivers on the road right now, but we still don't take all the cars off the road. We police the drunk drivers. We don't throw all the cars off the road. And that's what we can't allow them to do with cannabis. And we've been winning this fight. The whole world's watching and listening. You'd be surprised, like the other night I had to take, or yesterday's show, I had to take a call from fucking Australia. It was 3:30 in the morning their time. But it was because they see what's going on. They know what we're talking about here is the real. I've been reporting on this not only through the coalition fight, before that, and onwards. And I'll continue to do this. This is what my passion is. Most importantly, I can see that through the demographics on YouTube, that more and more people are sharing this around with their friends that are saying it is real. These companies are real. These aren't just fake companies setting up. There's not just one of them. There's 88 in Canada. Canada's a footprint. Anybody that understands businesses and business models that plan to be chains or large, you know, multiple outlets, in this case, international cartel corporation, then you would need to have a footprint and see how the people of a free and democratic society respond that have a constitution that protects them. Because if you can do it in this country, it'll make every other Commonwealth country easy, because they do not have a Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Now, that being said, we did not cross Section 7. We never needed to go past that. That's your right to liberty. So what Allard did was set constitutional precedents for every country that has liberty in your constitution to then say, show the harm. Put the government on trial and have the government show the harm in growing or using the cannabis plant. If they cannot prove harm under the World Health Organization guidelines, they can't stop you from your medical autonomous use of your body. Beast?
Exactly right. You hit it again right on the head. It comes down to liberty. It comes down to what you as an individual have a right to. And one of those rights are you have the right to try. And when there's people out there saying that it helps them, then I don't see how anyone can deny anybody. It's not right to.
I agree.
I understand when it comes down to making money for these big corporations and so forth, but that's what it's always been, right? That's been the end game for them, is how much money can they make, how much money can they get. And it's sad, especially when you see all these sick people. But slowly and surely, we are turning the stigma. And the world's beginning to pick up and notice, especially here in Canada, because we are the footprint of what's happening in the world. People are now turning to us and looking for the answers. And people internationally, some of them come here to Cannabis in Canada because they know we are pushing the right message. Because again, it's about being on the right side of history, right? It's not for us here in Cannabis in Canada. Is we're pushing the right message. The reason why it needs to be free because of medical patients. Just look, like this is preventative medicine, right?
Correct.
There's no scientific studies done because scientific studies are going to prove what these people have been saying forever.
Correct.
You know what I mean? And this is why, right? So it's going to take people actually in all these different nations to begin to challenge it out and ask them.
One of my friends in Australia, I have a few. I was there last year to speak. It's funny how the internet works because it keeps us connected around the globe. But when I pointed out to this friend that look at here's where we're at, here's what's going on, you know. One sec here. Sorry, I'm losing my track here. I don't want to lose this here. Pull this back up. Otherwise, I screw myself all up. Anyway, Australia. We were talking about, like I tried to point out, like look at. Legalization is going to be your country, either next or Germany. I predicted this, I'm going to say it, and I'm going to keep saying it, and you guys can see if it comes to fruition or if I'm full of shit. I stand by my convictions, and I'll retract where I need to. I believe Australia will be the next, or part of, either South Wales or whatever, part of Australia will legalize and or all of it. And it's not because of the people, it's not because of a referendum, it's because it's already been preordained by the big bankers and the big corporations that international legalization, including Mexico, North America, and the UK, etc., is going to happen. They use Canada as the footprint, and some might ask why. My theory is because we are one of the strongest Commonwealth countries next to the UK, I guess, itself. Honestly, we are one of the strongest Commonwealth countries because of our Charter of Rights and Freedoms. So what better place to set up 88 companies under the guise of medical marijuana when there's no medical value to cannabis even, as I speak to you here now today. Canada, go look on Health Canada's website, says there's no medical value to cannabis. It needs further exploration. I call bullshit once again, but this is what's going on around the world. So to my friend in Australia, I said, well, have you heard of a company called OzCan? So he's like, OzCan? And I'm like, yeah, OzCan. He goes, yeah, I heard of them. And I'm like, have you followed the money? They're a subsidiary of one of our companies. Now, have you followed the money for CandyMed? The oil that's supplying your kids for your rich people over there that can afford it. And many people didn't know that Australians can fly into Canada, see one of our licensed producer doctors, get a prescription and a supply, and actually fly back out through customs and everything, over the border internationally. Ain't that a motherfucker? So then I said, so if you know about OzCan, then you must see them setting up around you. Because when they started setting up around me, I told my whole country in 2012, I'm on record doing this. They're just simply trying to hijack and corner the market. And if we don't get behind me, we will not be prepared when Health Canada makes their move. Now in this case, this is no longer a medical patient issue. This is a Canada issue. So when Canada makes its move, which is making this Cannabis Act of Canada law and legalizing, what are we going to do? And Beast, you make a good point, because I often say this, what are you going to tell your kids or your grandkids? What are you going to tell them that you did during this time of legalization, when the history books are going to talk about this fight, they're going to talk about these legal wars, they're going to talk about the people's pushback, they're going to talk about the large corporations, the monopolization, the corporatization, and they're going to talk about the entrepreneurship that came with cannabis. But what are you going to tell your grandkids that you did during that time? You were either a spectator, you were in the sport,
or you let it go.
Yeah, or you, yeah, that's what I mean. You're either a spectator or you're in the sport. Because if you use cannabis, you should care. Even if you don't sell it, even if you're not in the industry, if you just use it, you should care.
These federal laws are set up to hurt people, split families up, take cars, lock people up, give large fines. It actually sees more jail time if you're caught growing without a license or growing more than you're allowed to. It sees more jail time rather than less. So though it seems like legalization, it's legalization with additional criminalization. So, Beast, I gotta close this show out because I gotta get ready, or I'm never gonna get over to the island here, and I gotta get on with my day. But it's going to be a 4-day exclusive trip to the island. We do have a lot of filming. I have a couple phone calls to make and get on with my day. So friends, if you don't see us on the air tomorrow morning, that's why. You can expect Vicky and I to do a live show of some sort, either from our hotel or from wherever, using our equipment that we have. But we're not taking full studio with us, not for live stream anyway. It's just a lot of extra gear to pack up that we're not going to take. But we are doing a lot of pre-records, so we will have our camera gear with us. Most importantly is, yeah, I got to talk to my bro first. So I might even do a show later tonight and let y'all know where there's going to be a party. I want to make sure that party's still happening before I announce it. Otherwise, it could be a kabuckle. A bunch of people will be like, well, Cox, you said we were going to have the sesh. So honestly, the island is the best place to have a sesh if you ever want to, because yeah, real recognizes real, and the island is a place that's always treated us with nothing more than the utmost respect. On that note, I also look forward to visiting the East Coast towards the end of this summer as part of the Coalition documentary informational tour, if you have it. That's still being worked on. There's so many things going on at one time that I just can't keep up. That's probably why I'm hiding here on this show talking so long. It's because I'm trying to avoid all the other projects that I see sitting on my table, and I gotta learn to go through this. So as you see, I'm still in my training gear too, so don't forget, always exercise, always look after yourself, punch up, don't punch down. And remember, in a time of legalization, there are a lot of people out there trying to hawk each other's intellectual property. Join a team, join a crew, and make your crew the biggest, baddest crew in the country. But honestly, to keep fracturing off, guys, you're really diluting yourselves into the market. And you know, it's funny because I see about 35 different branding companies now, and it's like, damn, you know, you got 35 of you competing with each other, but nobody knows who you are. So it's kind of hard to compete when you're a ghost. On that note, this is Jason Wilcox signing out, and you know what, I love all you guys. I'm going to play Coalition past the present, but I will not be coming back on the screen. Beast of the East, thank you for coming on again today. We will talk again on an upcoming show. I do have a 4-day excursion to the island. My light just turned out on me. I actually look better with the light out because of this backdrop. Anyway, thanks for being on the show, Beast of the East. We will be in touch next week. For any further updates, please keep your finger on the pulse. Friends, if you need to get a hold of the Beast of the East, there is a public Facebook page where you can get a hold of him and then get messages through so that we know what it is that you want to talk about. If you don't like what your province is doing, let us know so we can report on it. On that note, this is Jason Wilcox signing out after once again another marathon freaking show. This has been 3 hours and 51 minutes, so 9 minutes Facebook would have killed us anyway. So I'm wishing everyone a wonderful Thursday, and please wish us a wonderful, safe trip as we drive up and down the Vancouver Island. Yeah, Vancouver Island.